going live. Still going live, Oh, no. Oh, no. Going live, second try. We're live. Wow, okay. Fingers crossed. This is our second attempt to get online tonight, folks. If anybody's out there, it's 10 o'clock already. YouTube has just been telling me live streaming is unavailable, and then put me on a permanent refresh, and then I kind of reloaded the page and managed to get in. So I'm not sure what's wrong with YouTube tonight. I've got some green on my sound machine, so I'm hoping you can all hear me. So if anybody's out there, say hello. Hi, I'm Dr. Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station here on YouTube, also known as the Doghouse. And tonight, fingers crossed, we're looking at chapter 22 in our Children of Dune book club. So if anybody's out there, say hello. It's nice to have you here. Our wee station continues to grow. We've just noticed there, we've just passed our 2,800th subscribers. So we've got over 2,800 of you at the moment, which is very gratifying, I have to say. It's really just nice to know that a lot of people have kind of got taken interest in this, if you know what I mean. And we have a hardcore little audience. So it's just we grow. We're growing slowly, I think, which is probably the best way to grow. Just in relation to housekeeping, folks. I didn't get my correspondence done this week, as I'm sure you all know, because I was hoping to email a bunch of you and deal with the all the comments and stuff. Interestingly enough, one of my students actually pointed out something to me about the comments, which I think will probably help me manage things a wee bit better. But it'll be happening this week, folks. So taxes got in the way, if you see what I mean. Taxes and governance, yes, indeed. I'd also just like to say, I know a bunch of you out there are in the kind of California, Los Angeles area. So just to let you know, we're thinking about you over there, and hope that you're all safe, basically. It's a bit of a situation to be in, isn't it? Oddly enough, I suppose our epigraph for the very first for our chapter 22 here is kind of relevant to that in a funny kind of way. And let me just read it to you. Good governance never depends upon laws, but upon the personal qualities of those who govern. The machinery of government is always subordinate to the will of those who administer that machinery. The most important element of government, therefore, is the method of choosing leaders. This comes from the book Law and Government from the Spacing Guild. Sorry, it's from the section on Law and Government from the Spacing Guild manual. So there we go. Quite interesting, especially in relation to what's been happening in California. There's Sean Wyland saying, "Good evening, Doc." Evening, Sean. How you doing? Thanks very much for joining us, as always. Good to see you, sir. Yes, indeed. Good governance. So it doesn't depend on laws, but the personal qualities of those who govern, on the qualities of those who we elect, if you like. The machinery of government is always subordinate to the will of those who administer that machinery. Now, in this country, I suppose that's a civil service, if you like. The most important element of government, therefore, is the method of choosing leaders. I don't know. There's a few different methods of going about it, isn't there? There's quite a few different methods of choosing your leadership. Leaders tend to come and go, but the civil service remains, if you like. The civil service in ancient states, pardon me, is actually one of the means that we can find out a lot of information about the ancient world. the the maintaining and storing of records, if you like, in particular, to governance is a useful archaeological tool. But yeah, at the same time, you could call this the civil service. You could also, I think, that the modern term, the neologism for this is the deep state, if you like. So pretty much, again, it's to do with bread and circuses, I think. But who you elect, there's been examples of that in this country where somebody's elected to a position, given a ministerial job, and suddenly find themselves at odds with the civil service, who can, because they know the inner workings of government and how to process things, whereas they can cause real problems. In this country, we used to have a TV show called Yes Minister, and then there was a sequel to it. It's a pretty famous show, actually. Yes Prime Minister. That show is kind of the epitome of what we're talking about, if you like. How various ministers have to deal with the civil service, basically, if you like. There's Carlos saying, "Hey Doc, hey guys, hi Carlos, how you doing? Hope you're keeping well, sir." So yeah, we just got started there. Just a nice short, punchy, I suppose, little epigraph. The personal qualities, therefore, of those who govern. One thing, those who administer, another, and the method of choosing leaders. So I suppose ultimately, if you wanted to look at it in some kind of detail, what could you eke out from this is that how you choose your leaders is important. We often choose them for whatever particular qualities. We never ask, are they a good accountant? How good are they with numbers or things like that? It's personality, really, isn't it? But at the same time, how you choose those personalities, the smart thing would be to choose personalities that can deal with and know how to deal with those who administer the machinery, if you see what I mean, because they can bring it to a halt. I suppose it's fundamentally about understanding the systems of government, if you like. Yeah, just got me thinking. Just very much yes minister, yes prime minister, that kind of thing. If anybody's not seen them, by the way, they're sitcoms, if you like, situation comedies, probably from the 80s, I think, into the 90s. They're very, very funny and absolutely give you a very good insight into how the civil service works in the United Kingdom. So let's see, folks. How are we getting on now? Let's start off with the chapters. Not too heavy a one, this, but it is very much a bit of a preamble to things kicking off, if you like, which they're going to do in the next chapter. Culmination of various kind of machinations and plots, if you like. So we start off this chapter with some of Jessica's thoughts. Basically, what we have is that Jessica's is in an anteroom, which is just off the Alia's Great Keep, and she's sort of basically waiting here along with various other attendees for Alia and the procession to come out and head into the Great Hall. So we have a kind of in this chapter we get Jessica's thoughts on various things. We get a bit of a flashback. Pardon me. We finally get a couple of questions answered firmly for us in relation to the Lady Jessica's motivations and her reasoning for being on Arrakis at this time. We also kind of see how I suppose, how would we put it, nobles from a major house look at the unwashed masses, for want of a better word. People like our good selves, Carlos is saying, I've never been comfortable choosing a leader with a popularity contest. Yeah, neither am I, Carlos, to be honest with you. And there's Cynthia saying, hi Doc, hi all. Hi Cynthia, thanks very much for joining us. How are you keeping? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, in my country, during COVID, for example, our government just went to bits. And our government is kind of a combination of Protestant religious nut jobs and Catholic religious nut jobs with a hint of Marxism about them, if you like. That's the split in the country. And during COVID, they had no idea what to do at all. A lot of them just let's go to church, this kind of thing, which didn't help. And they're just, yeah. For example, an attempt to create an integrated school here in Northern Ireland's largest, one of the largest grammar school, trying to become integrated, which means to have Catholics and Protestants going to school together. That was stopped this week in this country by a Protestant minister. There you go. And it's the personal qualities. So in this country, we elect, the Protestant community will elect people based on how loyal they are. And that's the word. I think we had some 90-year-old painter elected to government up in our local council, and he's loyal. He's a member of the Loyal Orange Order, which is a Christian death cult, if you like. And yeah, that's who runs our government here, And even the interesting thing here, I suppose, is even when we vote people out, we've got two guys operating around here at the minute. One was voted out as an MLA, and people have just rejected him. He's in a lovely, just nepotism to give him a job. And then we actually have a very interesting one with one of the former vice chancellors of former chancellors of the university here. With a very interesting story about him and how he was kind of ended up out of the university, and now how he's got he's in a position of control, I think, if you like, within relation to how that university goes forward. It's the qualities of the people that we elect are often very poor. What is kind of going back to things like Plato's Republic, this idea of philosopher kings, if you like, not that that's a good idea, but there's certain aspects of English education that kind of have operated towards that. Places like Eton think that they are producing philosopher kings, if you see what I mean. What you'd be much better with is a philosopher accountant, trained in ethics. Accountants trained in ethics would be fantastic, wouldn't it? That's who you want running your country. So it's just one solution, isn't it? It's probably the wrong one. Divide and conquer, the oldest tactic in the world. Yes, indeed. Worked here. Yeah. Pardon me. So yes, indeed. How you elect your people in power. We have now what's called single transferable first past the post system in Northern Ireland. So if I have 10 candidates, I can put 10 sets at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I don't want to vote for anybody except one person, I can give that person a single vote. However, what happens then, which I don't agree with, is if that person doesn't make it, my vote's tallied up and transferred to someone else. So you end up voting for people who you didn't vote for at all. I don't vote at all in Northern Ireland, but none of us in our family vote, because we're just electing one kind of sectarian scumbag or another kind of sectarian scumbag. And the whole idea, I suppose, Carlos, whenever a lot of people, when presented with two parties or two candidates or two options, they'll go for one or the other. And because we have a kind of particularly in this country, we have an adversarial parliamentary system where you have one group in power and one is in the opposition. They just swap roles. You never really get any difference. You never get any change, particularly with party politics. I think if you served in government, parties should be removed from it, because parties are mobs, basically. This is the way I look at it, and they're very dangerous things, But we had a good one in the UK this week in Parliament. I think somebody got told off for using the word suicide because it's an offensive word, and I just wanted to scream at the TV, and just go, what the hell? And it's interesting that someone's being told off for their speech in a place called Parliament, where it's the only place in the UK where you actually have privilege to speak, that you can say anything you like. So it's all sorts of things going on like that. But be careful who you elect, who you put in power, and who you hand power over to. The consequences for that become more apparent, and the bigger the country you have, and the more resources that any given leader has. So remember, when you put someone in power, you're handing over to them the police, the army, etc., all sorts of things. And they could be a bit mad, a bit like Alia here. So here we go. Why does Alia wish me to share this the morning audience? Jessica wondered. They've not voted me back into the council. So this is the whole thing that I suppose Alia, that the Fremen are pushing for, but this vote hasn't happened yet. So here we get our locus. Jessica stood in the anteroom to the keep's great hall. The anteroom itself would have been a great hall anywhere other than Arrakis. Pardon me. Following the Atreides' lead, buildings in Arrakeen have become ever more gigantic as wealth and power concentrated, and this room epitomized her misgivings. Pardon me. She did not like this anteroom with its tiled floor depicting her son's victory over Shaddam IV. We had a tiled room back in Dune Messiah. That was quite interesting. To have a tiled floor depicting Paul Atreides' victory over the Sardaukar of Shaddam IV and the Sardaukar, I think would be a bit tacky. To have it, it's the thing that people would be looking down on. If you see what I mean, it's not quite the idea of having a mosaic or something like that on the floor. It would be the thing that would, the thing of tapestries and this kind of thing, if you like. You want people looking up at it. The fact that it's on the floor, I don't know, with people walking on it, wiping their feet on it, looking down on it, I think isn't a smart thing to do, if you see what I mean. She did not like this anteroom. I certainly think if she'd designed it, she wouldn't have had that there. But it's an odd thing to have on your floor, if you see what I mean. She caught a reflection of her own face in the polished plasteel door which led into the great hall. Pardon me. Returning to Dune forced such comparisons upon her, and Jessica noted only the signs of aging in her own features. The oval face had developed tiny lines, and the eyes were more brittle in their indigo reflection. She could remember when there had been white around the blue of her eyes. Only the careful ministrations of a professional dresser maintained the polished bronze of her hair. Her nose remained small, mouth generous, and her body was still slender, but even the Bene Gesserit trained muscles had a tendency towards slowing with the passage of time. Pardon me. Some might not note this and say, "You haven't changed a bit." Now, just before we push on with that, she caught a reflection of her own face in the polished plasteel door which led into the great hall. I've written "mirror, mirror on the wall" just next to this. And again, if we consider mirrors and reflections within this, the mirror certainly with Alia is going to show us a fragmented personality. What we get with Jessica catching her reflection here is an honest appraisal, if you see what I mean, of how she looks. It's her catching her reflection here. Coming out, it forced such comparisons upon her. Pardon me, and Jessica noted only the signs of aging in her own features. So it's kind of looking in the mirror and taking a look at yourself in a way, and this is an honest appraisal, isn't it? She's got signs of aging, tiny little lines here and there, a little bit more brittle in the reflection. Her hair's lost that polished bronze, if you like. It requires the administrations of a professional dresser to maintain it, etc., etc. So the signs of aging, etc., are all there. And as much as we might look at her and say she hasn't changed a bit, she has. It's just an interest in the use of mirrors and reflections and poles, this kind of thing. But that's an honest, if you like, what we see looking back out of the reflection is an honest appraisal, certainly of the physicality of Jessica. But we're told this, though, but the Sisterhood's training was a two-edged sword. Small changes seldom escape the notice of people thus trained. And the lack of small changes in Alia had not escaped Jessica's notice. So that's part, again, this idea that whenever, I think way back whenever Jessica landed on the planet, and her Alia and Irulan don't seem to have aged a bit. And I thought it was a bit catty and a bit funny, but there's actually, of course, we now know there's a real reason for it. There's a noodle bug. So our noodles managed to take a massive dive into a big cow pat just not too long before this program started. It's absolutely covered in cow poo. But she's, looks like the wife managed to catch her and wash her. Absolutely, I'm gonna have to quarantine her when she's like that. Jack Russell's just love rolling and poo. Sorry, I've jumped off. I'm on, folks. Anyway, the sisterhood's training was a two-edged sword. Small changes seldom escape the notice of people thus trained. The lack of small changes in Alia had not escaped Jessica's notice. Now, here we go. Javid, the master of Alia's appointments, stood at the great door, being very official this morning. He was a robed genie with a cynical smile on his round face. Javid struck Jessica as a paradox, a well-fed Fremen. Noting her attention upon him, Javid smiled knowingly, shrugged. His attendance in Jessica's entourage had been short, as he'd known it would be. He hated Atreides, but he was Alia's man in more ways than one, if the rumors were to be believed. So there's a strong suggestion there that there's a sexual relationship between Javid and Alia going on behind Duncan Idaho's back. There's Julian saying hi, everybody. I don't know if I said hello or not already, Julian. How you doing? I was sitting having a wee nosy through your paper again. But I must have an adder about it. Just running through it again just to refresh my memory. But yeah, good to see you, sir. Thanks very much for joining us. I was just saying, everybody, by the way, I didn't get my mail correspondence done this week. Other things landed, unfortunately, all sorts of things, but I'm getting at it this week, so hopefully you'll hear from me soon. Blah, 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 blah. Now, here's a couple of things. Just jumping back, he was a robed, Javid, this is, he was a robed genie with a cynical smile on his round face. Now, I was kind of wondering, would genie be the right word here? Let me just look it up. Genie. Let's see. Bear with me a second. No, there's none. Let's see. Genie Feral Child. No. Now, let's look up a gin. Yeah, that's what I was interested in. It's just the use of this word genie here. Javid's a Fremen. Jessica's pretty much a Fremen, for want of a better word. She's a Fremen Reverend Mother. The word that should be used here would be jinn, I think. Genie is an anglicization, isn't it? It's a very English word when we talk about genies, that kind of modern Western thing, like I dream of genie, if you like, that we tend to think of. Jinns are a little bit different, aren't they? So it was just a kind of almost, I thought that word, I've written next to it, should that not be jinn? Just a word that didn't seem appropriate, if you see what I mean, particularly with the, the background of the Fremen, if you like. Yeah, cynical smile is around. So there we go. And then, of course, a paradox. Paradoxes is what Frank's all about. So just an interest, if you like. A gin, I had the Wikipedia thing open there. Hang on, I'll just bring it open. Oh. Jeannie. My granny was called Jeannie. And I didn't know that she was called Jeannie. I actually called her Jeannie once. My dad told me off. Call her Jean. She's your granny. Her name is Jean. Turned out that her real name was Jeannie on her birth certificate. So there you go. Jeannie, as we used to call her. Jinn, also romanized as jinn with the D, or anglicized as genies, are invisible creatures in early pre-Islamic Arabia and later in Islamic culture and beliefs. Like humans, they're accountable for their deeds and can be either believers or unbelievers, depending on whether they accept God's guidance. It's just off the Wikipedia. They're supposed to be invisible. They're neither innately evil nor innately good. Pardon me. Islam acknowledges spirits from other religions and could adapt them during its expansion. Jinn are not a strictly Islamic concept. They may represent several pagan beliefs integrated into Islam. Islam places jinns and humans on the same plane in relation to God, both being subject to God's judgment and an afterlife. The Quran condemns the pre-Islamic Arabian practice of worshipping or seeking protection from. There we go. So Within the Roman world, I suppose the word genius, if you like, um, how would we put it? Let me see. Um, yeah, their genius in the Roman world would be, and I've written here, was not a good thing. Spirits that, let me see, spirits that are attendant, if you like, upon a person or a place or a thing. Um, and if it's a personal sort of genie, if you like, it's from birth, if you like. So they're kind of almost like a household god, if you like. Minor deities, this kind of thing. Um, from one's innate ability or inclination is the other meaning of course, genius, if you like. So sometimes I think it's pretty much that the two words kind of got hybridized or something. I'm not 100% sure. Where does it come from? Latin genere, to beget. There you are. So it's just one of those things. Occasionally, an author would use a word that maybe it wouldn't be used in that place. I just thought genie was an example of that. He was a robed jinn, I think, would be better, with a cynical smile on his round face. He's a paradox, a well-fed Fremen, fat Fremen, basically. Noting her attention upon him. Yeah, and we've just run through that, haven't we? He smiled knowingly, shrugged. His attendance and her entourage had been short. He hated Atreides, but he was Alia's man in more ways than one if the rumors were to be true. So as much as he hates the Atreides, paradoxically, he's having a sexual relationship with one of them. You know? Paradox, always interesting within Frank Herbert's work. Jessica saw the shrug and thought, this is the age of the shrug. He knows I've heard all the stories about him and he doesn't care. Our civilization could well die of indifference within it. Oh, hang on, before succumbing to external attack. Sorry, I've made a mistake there when I was reading that. Let me just see. Could well die of indifference within it. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, I'll read that again. Just a wee mistake there by me. This is the age of the shrug. He knows I've heard all the stories about him and he doesn't care. Our civilization could well die of indifference within it before succumbing to external attack. And the guards Gurney had assigned her before leaving for the smugglers in the desert hadn't liked her coming here without their attendants. But Jessica felt oddly safe. Let someone make a martyr of her in this place. Alia wouldn't survive it. Alia would know that. She might survive it, I've written, and no. I don't know if she would know it or not at this point. It's interesting, when Jessica failed to respond to his shrug and smile, Javid coughed, a belching disturbance of his larynx, which could only have been achieved with practice. It was like a secret language, and it said, we understand the nonsense of all this pomp, my lady. Isn't it wonderful what humans can be made to believe? And Jessica's thoughts here are wonderful. Jessica agreed, but her face gave no indication of the thought. Now, just very quickly, those words are not actually said. Does that make sense? It was like a secret language, and it said that's what the shrug means to Jessica. It's how she interprets it. But those words, we understand the nonsense of all this pomp, really, isn't it wonderful what humans can be made to believe, are not said out loud. We have a bunch of that, I think, a little bit of that in this chapter. And again, wonderful. Her response isn't said out loud either. It's a little conversation that it goes on in her mind, basically. Now, very quickly, folks, sorry at this short notice, I'm going to have to run to the loo. I'll be right back. Uh, There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Ba, 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 ba. It's got a wee jingle or something. Well, I kind of do, but I have no way of setting up to play. Toilet music would be good, wouldn't it? There we go. Anyway, let's see. We moved ahead a wee bit there. Let someone make a martyr of her in this place. She might well do so. Alia wouldn't survive it. Maybe she would, and Alia would know that. Maybe not. Just backing up a little bit, the guards that Gurney had assigned her before leaving for the smugglers in the desert hadn't liked her coming here without their attendants. I've written next this, he'd hit the roof. Bad thinking. More to do with let someone make a martyr of her in this place. But I just put, if those were the guards that I'd assigned someone to protect them, and they didn't go with that person, they wouldn't be her guards anymore. I'd fired a lot of them. You know. And I think it's just an interesting thing. Maybe it's a bit of a Atreides bravura rubbing off on Jessica, but that she felt oddly safe. She shouldn't, should she? And it's just interesting the feel of this place. So, and yeah, we get this little kind of shrug from Javid, and we get a sort of sense of what Jessica thinks it might mean. And even a response. Wonderful, Jessica agreed, but her face gave no indication of the thought. So basically, no BS between these two. You know, so each knows what the other is, if you like. Now, the anteroom was now quite full, all of the morning's permitted supplicants having received their right of entrance from Javid's people. So you need to go through Javid's people to get in here. And that's going to be probably more important in the next chapter, I think. Javid's people, again, is how they're presented, not in any other way. The outer doors had been closed. Supplicants and attendants kept a polite distance from Jessica, but observed that she wore the formal black abba of a Fremen Reverend Mother. This would raise many questions. No mark of Muad'Dib's priesthood could be seen on her person. So, in relation to, I suppose, the various organizations that have built up around the Atreides, the various power structures that have popped up, the priesthood would be one. You know, we're going to see the Amazons, the personal guards of Alia, as another, for example. This is the priesthood not liking rank. We've been told about Duncan Idaho displaying no rank as well previously, and why the Amazons don't like him, basically. And that they love rank and they love the display of power and your place in the power structure, if you like. So just like Duncan Idaho, Jessica doesn't play this game with them. She's the mother of Paul Muad'Dib. She's wearing the formal robes of a Fremen Reverend Mother, a holy figure, and she wouldn't need to wear rank, I think, of any kind here. And it is interesting how rank works in these organizations here. It's a Fauxfrouche system. At the end of the day, they're not nobles. And I think we're going to see a bit of that attitude that, you know, these are just, you know, to the great houses, these would be middle class scum or lower class scum, if you see what I mean. And part and parcel of, I think, what we're looking at is what was discussed in the previous chapter: shifts in power, shifts in wealth, different classes coming up, other classes moving, or other maybe houses falling down. This kind of thing, you know. There's Joseph Smith, Dune fan, saying, "Howdy all, howdy Joseph, how you doing? Hope you're keeping well, sir. Thanks very much for joining us as always." But yeah, it's a nice little touch, this, the way Frank does this within his writing. We get this done with Duncan earlier, and now we get it done with Jessica. The two different groups, though, seem to be obsessed with rank, you know, and where your place is on the pecking order. I had a horrible thing that was happening to me. Basically, after I did my PhD, I ended up signing on unemployment for a while. When I applied for jobs, after 13 weeks, I was basically sold into slavery, pretty much, by the local Department of Works and Pensions and handed over to an organization called L Enterprises. The L's actually is the first name of the woman that owns the company, and it's supposed to stand for Elite Lifelong Learning and Education. And basically all they did was make me repeat everything that I did when I was trying to do for a job. I would have to go and repeat everything for them that I was already doing. They're the most useless bunch of people I've ever met. The most disgusting thing about them is, as you went into their building down in Korean, is that they had a reverse pyramid of all the people who worked or for their little company, if you like. And what they did, so they had themselves at the top of this pyramid and going down, and all the different people, and then right at the very bottom, they'd stuck their cleaner right there at the bottom of this upside inverted pyramid to show everyone when you walk in that I'm at the top and this person here is at the bottom. And you need that pointed out in some ways, I suppose, but it disgusted me beyond belief, and how people sort of pull rank and use rank and titles and things like that. It's interesting. But it's a real example of that. And the people that run this are nobodies and nothings. You know what I mean? They're dickheads. The problem is that they need to display their greatness in society based upon where the position of their cleaner is, if you like, and that's the bottom. And look how far above I am. The interesting thing is in Northern Ireland that they've no idea to the rest of the British that you're second class citizens in this country, not upper, middle, or lower. That's a whole different category for the English, Scottish, and Welsh. We're a different class altogether here. And class is just what somebody calls you at the end of the day, depending on how you look at it. So it's an example of that. That pretty much, by the way, I signed off from off the Department of Works and Pensions, and I've never asked the government for anything ever again since, which is the smartest thing I've ever done, to be honest with you. The government's exactly like organized crime gangs in this country. If you don't need anything from them, they'll leave you alone. But the minute you go to them for something, you're screwed, basically. Now, but yes, indeed, rank and your position here, and because neither Duncan Idaho nor the Lady Jessica wear this rank, it creates real problems for everybody else who has a rank, because they don't know where they fit in, I suppose, in their own imagined social status within their organization, such as the priesthood or the Amazons, for example, when the actual reality of this universe is they don't fit in at all. They're so far below the Lady Jessica that they don't know it. And we're going to see, I suppose, a bit of her response to this, a bit of their snobbery, if you like. Okay, so no mark of Muad'Dib's priesthood could be seen on her person. Conversations hummed as the people divided their attention between Jessica and the small side door through which Alia would come to lead them into the Great Hall. Pardon me. It was obvious to Jessica that the old pattern which defined where the Regency's powers lay had been shaken. And we get her thoughts here. I did that just by coming here, she thought. But I came because Alia invited me. Bang. There we go. There's the truth of it. All the reasons that we've been presented with. Why is the Lady Jessica here? What's she done? What's going on? Is it the Bene Gesserit who've sent her? Blah, blah, blah. And the real truth of it is that Alia invited her. Her daughter invited her. And Alia has known this from the beginning. The only interesting thing is that we have not known it from the beginning. It's in terms of how Frank works with foreshadowing and giving us hints of prescience and stuff. I've been wondering myself, what are her motivations here? What are they in black ink? Really, what's Frank say about it? But here we get it, and it's left us doubting Jessica up until this point. And there's another assertion here, I suppose, but at this point, really, I think that we can start to understand that Jessica is the same Jessica, most likely. And we should probably be treating her as our female protagonist in a sense, or one of the protagonists, as opposed to an antagonist. Reading the signs of disturbance, Jessica realized Alia was deliberately prolonging this moment, allowing the subtle currents to run their course here. Alia would be watching from the spy hole, of course. Few subtleties of Alia's behavior escaped Jessica, and she felt with each passing minute how right she'd been to accept the mission which the sisterhood had pressed upon her. So, is Jessica here at the behest of the Bene Gesserit as well? Yes. Also the truth. So, what's she doing here? Alia invited her. Is she working in a sense for the sisterhood? Yes. She's having, but I think there's caveats to that. But it's good to get these questions answered by the character themselves, if you like. How, especially within the previous chapter, we have 3 different characters looking at each other, and each of them getting what the other's about really quite wrong, I think, in many ways. That's part of human nature, isn't it? I can't see what's going on in there. But it's nice for me, from my point of view. I've loved the wondering about it, the speculation. I've read these books years ago, couldn't remember. There it is on the page. Alia invited me, and she felt with each passing minute how right she'd been to accept the mission, if she this mission, if you choose to accept it, which the sisterhood had pressed upon her. Now, so there's 2 truths there. Which is nice to see amongst a lot of kind of fencing and deception, if you like. Now, we got a past memory here. So as much as she's waiting in the hallway, we're going to get some fluids, folks. This past memory kicks in at this point. And it takes us back to a Bene Gesserit delegation on Caladan. So this is our Bene Gesserit delegation leader, as we'll call her. Matters cannot be allowed to continue in this way, the leader of the Bene Gesserit delegation had argued. Surely the signs of decay have not escaped you, you of all people. We know why you left us, but we know also how you were trained. Nothing was stinted in your education. You are an adept of the Panoplia Propheticus, and you must know when the souring of a powerful religion threatens us all. Jessica had pursed her lips in thought while staring out of a window at the soft signs of spring at Castle Caladan. She did not like to direct her thinking in such a logical fashion. I think that's kind of important. I suppose we're going to get a sort of one of Lady Jessica's biases, if you like. One of the first lessons of the sisterhood had been to reserve an attitude of questioning distrust for anything which came in the guise of logic. Now, that's a couple of times we've got that now, and it's going to be relevant in a minute or two when Javid pops up, because the weapon that he's going to use against her is logic, if you like. But she doesn't like to direct her thinking in such a logical fashion, and that the sisterhood in general has an attitude of questioning distrust for anything which came in the guise of logic. I don't know about that. There's different types of logic, really, isn't there? Oh, there you go. Didn't know that. There's even a rapper called Logic. You type in Logic, that's the first thing that appears, not. Now, just giving you what Wikipedia says very quickly. Logic is the study of correct reasoning. It includes both formal and informal logic. Formal logic is the study of deductively valid inferences or logical truths. It examines how conclusions follow from premises based on the structure of arguments alone, independent of their topic and content. Informal logic is associated with informal fallacies, critical thinking, and argumentation theory. Informal logic examines arguments expressed in natural language, whereas formal logic uses formal language. When used as a countable noun, the term a logic refers to a specific logical formal system that articulates a proof system. Logic plays a central role in many fields such as philosophy, mathematics, computer science, and linguistics. So that's kind of what I was going to say there. Is I've kind of looked at logic, pretty much 3 out of 4 of those. Um, you know, study ancient Greek logic, not the same as studying logic, modern logic today with computers and things like that. And I think what we've got here is a throw in of all things logical because of an association with the Butlerian Jihad, and machine logic, really. But if we understood, if we even knew a wee bit about the history of logic and stuff like that, this would be pretty bad thinking for the Bene Gesserit to have. If you see what I mean, it's not a good thing to think that I don't like logic. I don't like things that are logical. At the same time, and I'll say this honestly, logic can fail you very easily when the fundamental thing about it that you realize is that human beings are not logical. Some of us are, but there's a lot of us are not. And especially when it comes to, if we're talking about kind of Machiavellian things and stuff like that, to do the illogical thing, to be deceptive, etc., is probably the smart thing to do. Don't do what people expect you to do, if you see what I mean. But it's logical fashion, logic, guise of logic, anything which comes in the guise of logic, I suppose, is a questioning distrust for it. And I've just written next this must be machine focused in the Dune universe, if you like, the Dune universe, sorry. But to be distrustful of logic, and it seems it's built in one of the first lessons of the sisterhood to reserve an attitude of questioning distrust for anything which came in the guise of logic. Anytime you encounter logic, sisters, remember this: don't trust it. But I don't know. I'm in two minds about the statements here. But the point is, I suppose that this is going to come. This is her distrust of logic, anything like that, is going to come and bite Javid on the backside in a minute. But the members of the delegation. So back to our flashback then. But the members of the delegation knew that too, and so we come back to the now. So as much as there's manipulation going on here, things can't continue. Surely you've seen the signs of decay. You of all people. Why her of all people? It's an interesting statement, isn't it? Has that got something to do with things like the stagnation that you see in the House Atreides and House Carino, etc., the whole stagnation of the Empire? We know why you left us, okay. Well, that we pretty much understand that was for love at the end of the day, wasn't it? But we know also how you were trained. So we know how you think and because we taught you how to think. You're an adept of the panoplia propheticus, and you must know when the souring of a powerful religion threatens us all. So souring is an interesting way of putting it. But yes, indeed, the religion's gone full on for power. And I suppose as the word subordinate's interesting earlier, but is looking really to probably, like everybody in the Dune universe, to attain power. Now, let's see. So back to now, and we get Jessica's thoughts here. How moist the air had been that morning, Jessica thought, looking around Alia's anteroom. How fresh and moist. And again, it's moisture, that obsession with moisture that the Fremen would have is there with her. Here, there was a sweaty dampness to the air, which evoked a sense of uneasiness in Jessica, and she thought, I've reverted to Fremen ways. The air was too moist in this siege. In the siege above ground. What was wrong with the master of the stills? Paul would never have permitted such laxness. She noted that Javid, his shiny face alert and composed, appeared not to have noticed the fault of dampness in the anteroom's air. Bad training for one born on Arrakis. We're going to jump back to the past in a wee second. It's interesting that if just in terms of that there, the sweatiness, whenever we vary all the way back in June, pretty much right at the start if I can recall correctly, I'm sure that Castle Caladan is described like that. The kind of sweats, doesn't it? If I remember correctly. Bear with me a wee second. That's not the first chapter, is it? That's a chapter 0, is it? Or it is. But yeah, it's a thing that reminded me of Castle Caladan. Way back, I'm not too sure. Would it have been the chapter 1, maybe chapter 1 or chapter 3? I probably should look this up beforehand. I've got a bunch of stuff to read to you guys at the moment. I'm going to have to get it organized, actually. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that was it. Sharp contrast, I suppose, to Arrakis. Bear with me a second. I'll just see if I could find it. Oh, here we go. Castle has that cooled sweat feeling. Even the stones of Castle Caladan produce moisture metaphorically. There you go. That was it. All the way back in chapter 1 of Dune. So it's an interesting evocation, if you like, of memory. How moist the air had been this morning, how fresh and moist. That there was a sweaty dampness to the air. Evoked a sense of uneasiness in Jessica, and she thought, I've reverted to Fremen ways. The air was too moist in this seat above ground. What was wrong with the master of the stills? Paul would never have permitted such laxness. And I think why it's throwing her here is because of those words, if you like. If it's almost reminding her of Caladan, which should seem quite alien to her, I think. Caladan, Arrakis shouldn't remind me of Caladan. But as soon as the sweaty dampness to the air inside this anteroom just made me think, oh, just hang on, I remember that. And off we go all the way back to chapter 1 of June, the sweatiness of Castle Caladan. And I think that's possibly what contributes to her uneasiness here. She noted that Javid, his shiny face alert and composed, appeared not to have noticed the fault of dampness in the anteroom's air. Bad training for one born on Arrakis. And then we jump back again to this past memory of the Bene Gesserit delegation. So the members of the Bene Gesserit delegation had wanted to know if she required proofs of their allegations. She'd given them an angry answer out of their own manuals. All proofs inevitably lead to propositions which have no proof. All things are known because we want to believe in them. But we have submitted these questions to Mentats, the delegation's leader had protested. Jessica had stared at the woman astonished. I marvel that you have reached your present situation and not yet learned the limits of Mentats, Jessica had said. At which the delegation had relaxed. Apparently it had all been a test, and she had passed. They'd feared, of course, that she had lost all touch with those balancing abilities which were the core of Bene Gesserit training. Now, goodness gracious, bear with me a wee second, folks. So if we... Where'd it go? Bear with me. Acceptance. Yes, if we remember our previous epigraph, what we had was the assumption that humans exist within an essentially impermanent universe takes us, bear with me, taken as an operational precept, demands that the intellect become a totally aware balancing instrument. And it's sometimes with the epigraphs, it's what we're focusing on within a chapter. Sometimes they're foreshadowing what's ahead, if you like. But I just thought, again, the language here reminded me on that. And it's that she that's their worry, that she'd lost touch with the balancing abilities, which are at the core of Bene Gesserit training. So for her ability to kind of look at things in a balanced, measured way, if you like, they're probably wondering about that because she is the mother of this, the head of this new Messiah, new religion. Now, I've got a couple of things to talk about here. Let's have a wee look, backing up a bit. They're offering her proofs. She'd given them an answer out of their own, an angry answer out of their own manuals. So they're basically saying, would you like us to prove this to you? And here's a response. All proofs inevitably lead to propositions which have no proof. I've written next to that, no. Just no. Things are known because we want to believe in them. No. That's also what I've written next to that. All proofs and all things are known. Inevitably, they're general, abstract. Sorry, my head's away with it today. They're generalizations and they're absolutes, I suppose. All proofs inevitably lead to propositions. No, it's not. I use proofs here. I teach my it's something that's not taught in schools at all here, is how to go get a proof. So if you've solved a mathematical problem, you've done it one way. All proofs inevitably lead to propositions. No, I'm going to go and do it a different way. And you know what? That's exactly where, if I have something I want to prove, I'm going to go get a proof. I'm going to go get another one. If that makes sense. If you do some, let's just say, I've got a rectangle with a perimeter of 2 and 3. With one side of 2 and the other side of 3, what's its perimeter? So you can go 2 plus 3 is 5, and another 2 and another 3. Okay, that's one way of doing it. You can go 2 plus 3 is 5 times 2 is 10. That's another way of doing it. You can go 2 plus 2 is 4, 3 plus 3 is 6. Add the 2 together, 10. Another way of doing it. Loads of ways of doing the same thing. Whenever you do it one way, you've got an answer. Whenever you do it another way, get you the same answer, you've got proof. And that to me is like, it's I suppose GCSE, A level, maths level, that kind of thing. But no, all things are known because we want to believe in them. No, I'm sure we know plenty of things that we had no idea about believing in. To be honest with it, so I just found her angry answer. I found the statements in it not true, basically. Excuse me. Starting to develop some opinions about Frank Herbert. I'll need to flesh them out, I think, a bit better before I discuss them. But just in relation to Frank's relationship with science and technology and mathematics and things like that, I'm not looking at it in a particularly good way, I suppose. But this is a character speaking, isn't it? But just with no and no. I tend to put anything like that to the test in this, and if it's an absolute and I can find anything, then that goes against it, then it's a no. And to make those two statements that she says not absolutes, all you have to do is remove the word all twice. And you could possibly make those statements true, but as such, they're not true. And of course, so the point again is that this is all a test. It's a deception by the Bene Gesserit against Jessica to see if she can still think properly, if she can still think like a Bene Gesserit, I think. It's all just a test. Now Jessica became softly alert as Javid left his door station and approached her. He bowed. I'll just catch up with your comments before I go on any further, folks. So they said Jessica's distrust of logic echoes Gaius Helen's atavistic fear of mentats and Dune Messiah, a guild weakness. And continues to say, contrast this to Alia's inner wish for a compliant machine in place of Duncan. Yes, indeed. Yeah. And again, it's sort of putting them opposed, isn't it? One mother distrusts logic. Alia is kind of yearning for a machine like that, as you point out. And is it possible that even because of Duncan Idaho being a mentat and a Gola and being a sword master and being a person who loves her, that ultimately, regardless of how logical the school of mentats are, I think regardless of the abilities of most people within the Dune universe, fundamentally they're all still human, aren't they? Yeah, and possibly what, and the other thing really that I did get was everything in terms of Alia being taken over, Cynthia. As much as we're talking about her inner wish, I'm starting to wonder how much of Alia is in charge of Alia, because the whole thing about Alia's suspicions about Jessica, what's she doing here? Blah, blah, blah. Fixating on her like this. The truth is that Alia invited her. And why doesn't she remember? And I'm starting to wonder, is that the Baron really, and we've seen him actually pop out and go, reveal himself almost in this. Or here, hang on, that might be next chapter actually, sorry. No, it was the previous chapter, wasn't it? He pops out now and then, loses the control, if you like. But it started to make me wonder, Cynthia, the inner wish for the compliant machine, is that the Baron's real wish rather than Alia's, I think. I'm trying to figure out, now that I've kind of got some answers, folks, here's what I'm trying to figure out now. I'm quite kind of satisfied with what I understand about Jessica's role here, how she's come about to be here, what her motivations are, who's she working for, this kind of thing. I've kind of, a couple of the last little answers were provided to us there a minute ago. What I'm starting to wonder, and my mind is shifting, is how much of Alia is Alia and how much of Alia is the Baron, and especially how much of Alia is the Baron since the start of the book, really. Or how much of, again, the question possibly asked, are they in cahoots? Again, I might be jumping ahead a wee bit, but that's where my mind is starting to go. And again, sympathies for Alia. All of this about her mother. She doesn't even know that she invited her here. Oh, Mum, would you come and see me? Come and see your grandchildren. This kind of thing. Nice to see you. That's the reality behind all of Alia's doubts and kind of worries, or are they the Baron's machinations about what's going on with Lady Jessica? Why is she here? Why now? This kind of thing. And it kind of almost echoes some of the questions. Just something said there about the destructive logic echoes Gaius Helen, atavistic fear of mentats in Dune. It kind of reminds me on what is it? Sorry, it's popped out of my head there a wee second. Oh, brain. Let me see. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, folks. I'll see if it'll come back to me. It was reminding me of something about Gaius Helen way back as well. Oh, that was it. I'm sorry, I got there. I'll eventually get there. It was kind of, it made me feel like, again, with the reiteration of things that go on in the Dune series, the idea that why does it take Gaius Helen 15 years to get to the Caladan to see Jessica? It's kind of at the same time, why is it taking this long, if you like, for Jessica to come? And I suppose the answers to that are a bit more obvious than the previous question, I suppose. Because we never really do get an answer. I think possibly the best thing we can say is that the Bene Gesserit just want to kind of, let's just wait and see what happens. So over comes Javid here. He's a real creature, isn't he? Based on the dialogue within this chapter, I wouldn't tolerate this guy for more than a minute. I mean, I really would not. So, my lady, it occurred to me that you might not have heard the latest exploits of the preacher. I get daily reports on everything which occurs here, Jessica said. And we get her thoughts now. Let him take that back to Alia. Knowing that there's reportage going on here. Javid smiled. Then he rails against your family. Only last night he preached in the south suburb and no one dared touch him. You know why, of course. Rhetorical question, but she answers anyway, because they think he's my son come back to them, Jessica said, her voice bored. Now, I actually think her approach here is wrong. The indifference, you're boring me, this kind of thing. I think it's the wrong tack to take, possibly. But So this question has not yet been put to the Mentat Idaho, Java said. Perhaps that should be done and the thing's settled. And we get Jessica's thoughts again here. Here's one who truly doesn't know a Mentat's limits, although he dares put horns on me in his dreams, if not in fact. That's an interesting statement, isn't it? He dares put horns on me. Is that to make a beast of me, to make a devil of me, this kind of thing? You make a villain of me. Now, Jessica's response to him is this. Mentats share the fallibilities of those who use them, she said. The human mind, as is the case with the mind of any animal, is a resonator. It responds to resonances in the environment. The mentat has learned to extend his awareness across many parallel loops of causality and to proceed along those loops for long chains of consequences. And again, her thoughts, let him chew on that. She's feeding him stuff here, putting on an indifferent bored expression, saying, and it's giving him information to a degree to see how that feeds back to Alia, pretty much, or his priesthood. But if you use such a thing, use such a person, then that mentat will share the fallibilities of the person who uses them. So if you have a schizophrenic using a mentat, expect schizophrenic responses. If you have a homicidal person using a mentat, expect homicidal responses. I kind of got that sense of it. Mentat has learned to extend his awareness across many parallel loops of causality and to proceed along those loops for long chains of consequences. And Julian was telling us a bit about, is it Indra's net? The other week, Julian was having a good read at that on Wikipedia. I'm going to do a wee sort of section, hopefully, if I can put it together. And I might do it as an extra program rather than throw a book club episode out. But we want to run through some concepts that are starting to appear in Dune. Indra's net's a good one to talk about. And the parallel loops of causality. Again, there's a hint of that there, I think. Just haven't had a reread out all these different Jules self-reflecting. It's quite an interesting thing. If anybody does want to have a look at it, check out the Wikipedia entry on Indra's net. It's a decent enough. I learned enough about it. I'd like to look a wee bit more into Indra. I've got a book on Eastern mythology here somewhere to have a wee nosy at. But a big thank you to Julian for that. So this preacher doesn't disturb you then? Javid asked, his voice abruptly formal and pretentious. Remember that this is loaded, by the way, with the fact that they think he's my son. So half the planet thinks this person's my son. Again, we haven't put this question, who's the preacher, to Duncan, Idaho. She explains the limitations of the mentat. Is it the suggestion that he might not be able to answer? And it reveals a bit about Javid's understanding of how to use a mentat. Now, this preacher doesn't disturb you then, Javid asked, his voice abruptly formal and portentous. So this preacher doesn't disturb you then? I find him a healthy sign, she said. I don't want him bothered. In other words, leave him alone. Javid clearly had not expected that blunt response. He tried to smile, failed. Then, the ruling council of the church which deifies thy son will, of course, bow to your wishes if you insist. But certainly, some explanation. And then Jessica says, perhaps you'd rather I explained how I fit into your schemes, she said. I think that's pretty much an attack against him. It's enough. Again, if we have no secrets, don't waste my time. What do you want from me? You want to use me. And we're told Javid stared at her narrowly. Javid says this, Madam, I see no logical reason why thou refuses to denounce. And again, listen to the language here. First of all, Madam, right? He's being rude here. My lady, it should be. Really, demoiselles and damsels and madams and mademoiselles, etc. There's a logic to those words if you investigate them etymologically. I see no logical reason why thou refuses to denounce this preacher. Of course, there's a logical reason. He cannot be thy son. He just bypassed it. Why not? I make a reasonable request. No, it's not. Denounce him. So this is an extremely dangerous move by Javid here. And as of course, Jessica's thoughts here is this is a set piece, Jessica. thought, Alia's put him up to it. And she said, no. I like that. Hang on a second, folks. Oh, we've got a textual problem. Let me see. Something said, my text says, although he dares to put horns on one in his dreams, if not, in fact, bear with me. Thank you. She's talking about Javid making a cuckold of Duncan. Yes, indeed. Put horns on one. Hang on. Have I got it? Let me just check that. All right, he's back here. Horns. Yeah, I was having a wee think about that. Let's see. Sorry, bear with me a second. Just I want to check that actually. I'm not too sure when we get There we go, over a bit. Sorry, bear with me a second. Got a fair amount of this chapter, by the way. I've made wee notes where it is that some things that should be in italics again because there's thoughts that aren't. Yeah, there it is. Bear with me a second. Let me just check. That's note number 25. Right. There's puts horns on one. Yes, indeed. Hang on. That's me. Cynthia, apologies. I do occasionally. I'm one of those one of those people that gets distracted a bit like Ash in Army of Darkness. Take 4 drops, or is it 5 drops? And return to your own time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What was that? 5. I could be a bit like that. Yeah, I've misread that. Sorry, that's my fault. Let me just check that. He dares put horns on me. It's on 1. Yes, you're quite. Oh, you know what? I've written 1. Believe it or not, but it's my ridiculously bad handwriting. My 0 just disappeared there. Thank you very much, Cynthia. We've always got to keep a wee eye on these books with the text, don't we? Cynthia's quite correct there. Sorry, I misread that, folks. Back up a wee bit. Here's one who truly doesn't know a mentat's limits, although he dares puts horns on 1 in his dreams, if not in the fact. Absolutely. Well, that completely changes the meaning, doesn't it? You're quite right, Cynthia. That's Javid talking about. That's Jessica's thought. It's about Duncan, isn't it? He's been made a cuckold, as you say. I always think that's an interesting word, cuckold. Cuckolds and cuckoos, etc. Thank you very much. As much as I've got to watch out for mistakes in these books, for 10 a penny, I make them myself. But that's a good thing, hopefully, is that we fix them as we go. Now, I'm sorry, folks, I don't know what's wrong with my bladder. You'll have to excuse me. I'm going to have to run to the loo again. I'll be right back. We'll get on with it. Sorry. Goodness, there you go. Sorry about that, folks. God, I was just remembering something about that. One of those stories I told you earlier. Maybe I'll remind me to tell you about it possibly at the end of it. But the organization that we were chatting a bit about, the Al Enterprises thing earlier, resulted in a confrontation between me and the civil service, which was very interesting, and I despise them completely. But they wanted to know something from me, and because they treated me like a piece of shit, I selectively gave them the truth and some lies, and then they went off and wrote their little report up in Mays Meadow in Belfast. So yes, indeed, the civil service in this country act sometimes like they're the police. They pretend that they have powers that they don't. And again, I'm generalizing, but the two people I met, very dodgy people. Because they had a little bit of power of me, which they lost almost immediately, they tried to use it, That's why I don't vote. Got no confidence in anybody out there. Cynical. Let's see, where do we get to, folks? Yeah, this statement's very, very important. This is Javid here, just backing up a wee bit. The ruling council of the church, which deifies thy son, will, of course, bow to your wishes if you insist, but certainly some explanation. So we want a reason, something to use against you. What he's basically telling her there is that we made your son a god. Our council of the church, the ruling council of the church, which deifies thy son, we made him a god. Not you. This kind of thing. It's, there you go, ownership of power, isn't it? An attempt to get in there. We know Javid's a Fremen, don't we, as well? And of course, perhaps you'd rather I explain how I fit into your schemes. Javid stared at her narrowly. If I'm staring at you narrowly, you're in trouble. And it's something I'll try not to do, because it gives my intent away. If you see, I've got this is I love my stare. I can give people a good, and then I can go. Like I can go very, very happy face to very, very mean face. But staring at people like this, very much again, someone who can read his body language. So he says, "Madam, I see no logical reason," and I've just written here, that's the wrong words for this guy to use. It's especially after what we've just heard about Jessica, and she's already hostile to this guy. I see no logical reason why thou refuses to denounce this preacher. Of course, there's a logical reason. So he's lying. He cannot be thy son. Why not? It could be, show me the body. Habeas corpus. Where's my son's body? It could well be him. I make a reasonable request. Denounce him. It's not a reasonable request at all. Especially when to denounce a person here probably would result in their death, I think. So it's an interesting thing. I suppose the question is, how much does Javid know? How much does he think he knows? How much is he being directed by Alia here? But it is a dangerous move. For if you came up to me and said, "There's a person there out there, right? It might be your son. Denounce him." I could go to hell. Who the hell are you, you scumbag? No. And you get the same response from me as Jessica does here. This is a set piece, Jessica thought. Alia put him up to it, and she said no. Now I've had somebody use a variety of set pieces on me, if you like. They've been come into this house and sort of have a go. They've been primed and they know how to say one thing, and whenever it didn't go their way, the really interesting thing was that they simply did not know what to say or do and just left. And then they would come back with another set piece, and it was the very obvious kind of thing when people are primed or going to say a certain thing to expect a certain response. I think it's quite interesting. I tend to think if my language is being directed by someone, that someone wants me to give I won't give it to them at all, and I'll be immediately wary of them, and I'll turn it on them. Like, why do you want me to say this word specifically? What's it got? If you throw things back in people's faces, it often leaves them, because we do all this kind of verbal fencing and kind of thing. we're seldom honest with each other, if you see what I mean. And honesty, as we would tell you in this house, is your armor, your weapon, and your shield. It's all three. And as much as dishonest people, you can cut through them. The only thing they can do is stick to their lies. Sooner or later, you'll be able to bear evidence upon them, and that's them done. But it's interesting, this stuff, the types of behavior that I recognize. But she's given him a no. And then here we go. But he defiles the name of thy son. The name of thy son. But again, the response should be, but what if he is my son? You're God. You're wanting me. If this is my son, you're taking it. There would be a 50-50 really chance at this. He's either Paul Atreides or he's not. But he defiles the name of thy son. He preaches abominable things, cries out against thy holy daughter. He incites the populace against us. When asked, he said that even thou possessest the nature of evil, and that thy, and he's cut off. And again, his language here, when you hear people talking in thous and adding ests and stuff like that, thou refusest thee, they've gone a wee bit mad, I think. It's archaic language. It's not that it's not used, but generally, thou goest away. This kind of thing. You're pretending to be religious, I think. God knows why. So he gets cut off here. Where's my wee paperweight? Sorry, folks. There you go. And she has been provoking him a wee bit, but he certainly crosses a line here. He's a bit of a cat's paw here, I think. Enough of this nonsense, Jessica said. Tell Alia that I refuse. I've heard nothing but tales of this preacher since returning. He bores me. And again, that boredom kind of thing. Is it the right tack to take here? I don't know. Because he's quite a cheeky monkey here, isn't he? Does it bore thee, madam, to learn that in this latest defilement he has said that thou wilt not turn against him? And here, clearly thou, evil as I am, he's cut off again, evil as I am, I still won't denounce him, she said. It's no joking matter, madam. And Jessica waved him away angrily. Be gone. She spoke with sufficient carrying power that others heard, forcing him to obey. His eyes glared with rage, but he managed a stiff bow and returned to his position at the door. Now, all of this is pretty interesting, I think. I don't know, quite frankly, how Javid survives here. It is probably only with the countenance of Alia. To stare at me with rage, a ruling member, she should have him killed. We're going to get a wee bit of that as we move along here. She's dismissive of him. He calls her madam twice instead of my lady. To learn that in the latest defilement he said, thou will not turn against them. And here clearly that. So yeah, as much as I mean, so basically it's a setup, isn't it? And it's a logical setup. If I say this and you do this, that proves that. Does that make sense? And they're logical fallacies, basically. Nonsense. Says that thou wilt not turn against him. Well, if you won't turn against him, you must be for him. We say that he's a person who preaches abomination, etc., etc. He's pretending that that you possess the nature of evil. It makes a personal attack against her, as if saying that would turn a mother really against her own son. Probably more turn her against the person who's saying it. Does it bore the, throwing stuff back at, and she's still, evil as I am, I still won't denounce him. It says that calmly. It's no joking matter, madam, like that. That's the third. It's got an exclamation mark on there. And he's calling her madam. This is again, remember that she's dressed in the holy Abba robes of a Fremen reverend mother. He is giving her, and he's a priest, he is giving her no title, regardless of rank. She is a reverend mother to the Fremen. She should require respect from these people. He has none for her here at all. He's full of rage. But she waved him angrily away. It's a physical gesture that everyone in the hall can see, and begone. She spoke with sufficient carrying power that others heard, forcing him to obey. So the interesting thing is that it's public shame that gets him to move here, not the use of voice control, if you like. And I just actually thought here that this is, I've wondered now, is Javid here a character metaphor for the Fifrelish system? Let's have a wee run on through just to see, we'll come back to that. This argument fitted nearly into the observation, fitted neatly, apologies, I gotta sort my, oh here, no, hang on. Gotta check this one on the book, Cynthia, I think. Yeah, why have I put, yeah, I've put a big arrow at that word. 36. This might not be my mistake at all. Yeah, I've circled it. This argument fitted nearly into the observations Jessica already had made. Could somebody check that for me, please? I'm pretty sure that this should be, this argument fitted neatly into the observations Jessica already had made. That would make a lot more sense. My text says fitted nearly. This argument fitted nearly into the observations. It doesn't neatly. Thank you, Cynthia. Yeah, that's one I caught. That's not me. Nearly, it is indeed neatly, and that's a mistake in the text. Another one. It's interesting, you know, when I did my PhD, you're not, well, it seems that there's different rules for PhD candidates in different countries. In the UK, we're not allowed to have, certainly here anyway, you're not allowed to have anyone help you in any shape or form with the work whatsoever. And that includes proofreading it, sadly. And with a 113,000 word document, you read the thing 8 times, you've got almost all the mistakes you can find. Microsoft Word can help scan for spelling mistakes. There's something you're going to miss, and there's a point where you just get blind to the words, if you see what I mean. And I think there's a mistake on the first page of my PhD, and it's not a mistake that that the word processor would have picked up as a correct word. It's just simply not the right word. Seem to get an awful lot of that within the Dune series, is that the spelling mistakes, the problems within the text, they're either contained inside words that someone might consider to be made up or slightly altered from foreign languages, disparate languages. But quite often, it's stuff like this, nearly as neatly. But one letter can change the meaning of. We've seen some things where, you know, but yes, some things where there's been a mistake and it's completely changed the meaning of what we're, you know, or else make something into nonsense. So, but thank you, Cynthia, as always. That's one I spotted. It's just part of the course. We're doing okay with these for a wee bit, I think. So this argument fitted neatly into the observations Jessica already had made. When he spoke of Alia, Javid's voice carried the husky undertones of a lover. No mistaking it. So there we go. That's his, yeah. The rumors, no doubt, were true. Alia had allowed her life to degenerate in a terrible way. Observing this, Jessica began to harbor the suspicion that Alia was a willing participant in abomination. Now, that's the bit that I was starting to wonder about. I want to highlight that nice big red here. Hang on. So it's kind of, it's become my, and again, I think this is great work by Frank as a storyteller here. He's tidied up a couple of loose ends in this chapter, and he does this really well, and immediately has given us another problem to, well, as far as I'm concerned, something else to wonder about. I don't need to wonder about Jessica's motivations, who invited her here, or what she's really doing with the Bene Gesserit. I know she's told us in this chapter. We've got her thoughts on the matter, but here becomes a more interesting question. How much of, I suppose, it's what I was trying to vocalize earlier. How much of what Alia has been doing at the beginning of this book has been Alia? How much of it has been the Baron? And we caught that conversation that we're, oh, you know, let me in, this kind of thing. It's strongly suggestive that she has been a willing participant, I think, or possibly up to a point. But at the flip side of it, what we've learned in this chapter is the thing that makes me doubt it at the same time. with all of this about why is Lady Jessica here on Caladan? What's she doing here? What's and Jessica's told us she invited me. My Alia invited her. So why doesn't Alia know this? Or is it some kind of denial, or is it the Baron who is ignorant of this fact, and the fact that he resides inside her mind, another memory? How could he possibly be ignorant of this fact? Is it a willful ignorance, if you like? I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen. And it creates a new reality, doesn't it? It's an interesting thing. Yes. And again, with Alia, before we go any further, it's again the nature of her tragedy, isn't it? It's one of those things that whenever I get through the Dune series, I've often it's something I ask you: what do you think of your hero? What do you think of Paul Atreides? And I suppose by the time we get to the end of this book, we can, when we've got the full run of some characters, we can ask ourselves this. But whenever I ask myself about Alia, what do I think of Alia's character? I'm always sympathetic. Regardless of how evil she goes here, I do consider a large amount of this to be not her fault. And you have to run that with Paul Atreides too, and that is one of the fundamental links into the Oedipus myth. Is this sense of these people, they can't help who they are, they can't help what's been done to them, and who they are is partly because of what's been done to them, if you like. Circumstances of birth. As much as that's an interesting point, it's also kind of sometimes not an excuse for anything. No matter who you are in life, I would say this to my son and things like that. You're an individual and you got dealt a set of cards, if you want to run with that metaphor, and what you do with those cards is how you play your game of life. But you have no power over what hand you've been dealt, if you see what I mean. And some of us kind of bemoan our existence, or why was I born this way, or this kind of thing. And it's easy enough to do, but at a certain point, you've got to accept, this is who you are, and go on with things, and see what's interesting and unique about being you. I think, and it's partly that tragedy at the same time. The individual is undivided, and we have this creature inhabiting her mind, and it could have been any creature within her mind, if you like, but it's the Baron. It's a person that this young girl killed when she was 3 or 4 years of age, and her grandfather. It's all sorts of crazy, isn't it? But I still, as I said, it'll take till we get to the end of the book really to see. But ultimately, regardless of how ambivalent I can be about Paul Atreides, sometimes I tend not to be about Alia. I see her as a highly tragic figure. Now, let's see. Yeah, so is she a willing participant in abomination? Has she been fighting it? Is she fighting him, or has she given in, or has she actually said, open the door, hey, come on and let's do this, if you like? That's kind of the three options, I think. Here's a question that Jessica asked. Was it a perverse will to self-destruction? And that's an interesting question, I suppose. Because surely Alia was working to destroy herself and the power base which fed on her brother's teachings. Well, I've written next to that, is she? Is this self-delusion by Jessica? Is this Jessica kind of hoping that her daughter's in there fighting, that this is possibly a way that she's kind of going to destroy herself? Maybe I think she's grasping at straws here, but she's looking for some hope in the situation. I don't know if you agree with me or not. But is this just a really twisted way of killing yourself, of destroying everything, But surely she couldn't be working to destroy herself and the power base which fed on her brother's teachings, Yeah, I've had a couple of friends who kind of committed suicide, if you like, and the process of kind of working to destroy yourself. It's a thing you can sometimes see. Often it's hidden, I think. But if you know, it seems a tricky way of going about it, doesn't it? If you're gonna if you're going to kill yourself, this kind of thing destroys it. It seems a very awkward and long-winded way of doing it. But then that's what some people do. For example, they pick the slow way of killing themselves. That's interesting. Faint stirrings of unease began to grow apparent in the anteroom. The aficionados of this place would know when Alia delayed too long, and by now they'd all heard about Jessica's peremptory dismissal of Alia's favourite. Jessica sighed. She felt that her body had walked into this place with her soul creeping behind. I like that. It's an interesting little phrase, isn't it? Gives her like a sense of disassociation, of not quite being yourself, um, and even something, even a little soul destroying. Your soul's catching up with you. Movements among the courtiers were so transparent. The seeking out of important people was a dance like the wind through a field of cereal stalks. The cultivated inhabitants of this place furrowed their brows and gave pragmatic rating numbers to the importance of each of their fellows. Obviously, her rebuff of Javid had hurt him. Few spoke to him now, but the others. Her trained eye could read the rating numbers in the satellites attending the powerful. And Jessica's thoughts here, they do not attend me because I am dangerous. She thought, I have the stink of someone Alia fears. And so the suggestion is that this is why she's alone here. Jessica glanced around the room, seeing eyes turn away. They were such seriously futile people that she found herself wanting to cry out against their ready-made justifications for pointless lives. Oh, if only the preacher could see this room as it looked now. So I've written here, it's starting to get a suggestion of a bit of snobbery here. Let's just take a look at the language. The seriously futile people. A ready-made justification for pointless lives. Pointless, futile people. That's an interesting one. So they say Paul is working to take down his divine legacy. I wonder if Jessica makes the connection here between Alia and Paul. That's a good point. As much as she's, why would Alia do this? Surely Alia's not, was working to destroy herself on the power base which fed on her brother's teachings. And this is the souring of the religion, if you like, that the Bene Gesserit delegation are talking about. Was it a purpose? Surely Alia was. Yeah, I agree actually. I wonder if Jessica makes the connection here. This is what Paul wants. Would Alia not also want the same thing? Surely Alia was working to destroy herself and the power base which fed on her brother's teachings. So it's included the power base, and that's what the preacher's about. That's what the preacher's been preaching about. Very good. Let's see. Cultivated inhabitants of the place furrowed their brows and give pragmatic. Yeah, so they assign rank and number and position. It's like a social game, if you like, amongst these people. Who's higher than who on the hierarchical religious ladder? And that they're forming into cliques, if you like. She glanced around the room, seeing eyes turn away. I always wonder why people do that. Actually, it's a funny thing that anytime when you look at someone and they see you, and then they pretend that you don't. Every time it's ever happened to me, it's just so obvious that you saw me. I don't know why people bother with that kind of behavior. If you do want to speak to someone, give them a wee wave and off you go. But this, I don't know. So this little statement is, they do not attend me because I am dangerous. She thought, I have the stink of someone Alia fears. I almost thought you could read that incorrectly, but they do not attend me because I am dangerous. But it's not the case. It's they do not attend me because I'm dangerous. I have the stink of someone Alia fears. Now, a fragment of nearby conversation caught her attention. A tall, slender priest was addressing his coterie. No doubt, supplicants here under his auspices. I love that word, auspices and auspices. It's one of those interesting ones. Um, was it auspices? It's a couple of Latin words, isn't it? I've got here Avis and spicere as a bird and to look. So an auspex is an observer of birds, if you like, under his auspices. It's a form of divination, isn't it? And the other name for it, I think, is ornithomancy. There you go, which is the divination of the future by the examining birds' entrails. But it's just it's a good word to use here, actually. But it's just my enjoyment of the word. Sorry, I thought I'd share it with you. So we get this tall, slender priest there. Often I must speak otherwise than I think, he said. This is called diplomacy. That's a quote from someone. I can't remember who. But I'm pretty sure it's not a Frank Herbert original. Oh, do you know what? It just occurred to me that I heard it, and I was wondering where I did hear it, but I actually heard it in Dune Prophecy recently. I'm pretty sure. This is called diplomacy. It's called lies. Anyway, often I must speak otherwise than I think, he said. This is called diplomacy. The resultant laughter was too loud, too quickly silenced. People in the group saw that Jessica had overheard. And we get her thoughts here. My Duke would have transported such a one to the farthest available hellhole, Jessica thought. I've returned none too soon. What I've written next, this is yet another great advertisement for Leto the First. If Leto was here, he'd probably have them killed, strung up, whatever. Exiled to the deepest hellhole in the galaxy for opening your mouth and voicing an opinion. And quite frankly, what the tall, slender priest says, often I must speak otherwise when I think. This is called diplomacy. It's a witticism. It's a wee joke. If she'd have that guy sent to the edge of the galaxy for making a joke within her earshot, what on earth would Leto the First do to Javid after the way he's treated after the way he's treated Jessica? So a bit of an insight. I've written earlier there, a bit of a snob here. This is, she's interacting with the unwashed masses, if you like, who've been raised up. They're priests. They have power. They have position. And we have to understand that it's one of the things that we're told way back in Dune is that the five foolish system is very loose on Dune, on Arrakis. Again, if in the five foolish system, a tall, slender priest would be a priest because his father had been a priest, because his grandfather had been a priest, and he would come from a long line of priests, if you like. That's a feudal system. And these are all, again, Javid, how they become priests is beyond me. But yes, just another good advert for Leto the First. I think she knew now that she lived on faraway Caladan in an insulated capsule, which had allowed only the most blatant of Alia's excesses to intrude. I contributed to my own dream existence, she thought. And again, we get a lot more honesty. Again, that kind of mirror at the start of the chapter. We get a lot more honesty with Jessica regarding herself in this chapter. As much as Jessica's not always bang on, doesn't always make the right decisions or choices, she's very human in many ways. She's very, very smart. She's a good example of, I suppose, what the unexamined life is not worth living, that kind of thing. Self-analysis, self-reflection, all of these kind of things. Oh, my Duke would have nailed that guy to the wall, But I've done this to myself, basically, is what she's saying here. I've lived in Caladan in an insulated capsule that has allowed only the most blatant, the worst of what Alia is up to get here, to be heard about. If it's not that bad, she doesn't hear about it, she doesn't want to know. And I have contributed to my own dream existence. Oh, excuse me, she thought. Caladan had been something like that insulation provided by a really first-class frigate, riding securely in the hold of a guild highliner. Only the most violent manoeuvres could be felt, and those as mere softened movements. And I've put that's kind of, again, it's like a womb-like metaphor there, really, isn't it? Pardon me. Sorry, simile. It's something like, it's a womb-like simile up at the top there. The frigate in the guild highliner. It's like she's created a little capsule like that, almost womb-like, if you like. And her thoughts here: how seductive it is to live in peace. She thought. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's good to live in peace. It is absolutely shit, beyond comparison, to live in a state of warfare. You know, I suppose pretty much from the noughties on, we in Northern Ireland here, we have what's called a peace process. It does not mean we have peace. We're kind of close to it, if you like. And life in Northern Ireland since the peace process began has been a lot better than it used to. It's a lot preferable to the madness and bombs and guns and executions and tortures and hangings and crucifixions that we used to get. At the same time, there is no peace. If you see what I mean, it's a false thing. There's enough lies told on all sides that there's a perception of peace. But you move into the different estates and things like that, you will find that all the terrorists that the British government let out of prison are still there, and they've taken control of the estates. But they've always had control of the estates. And simply they tend to be less blatant about it. A fantastic story this week, by the way, is a whole bunch of what we call the new IRA got text messages over the Christmas and New Year period from MI5, asking have they considered their life choices and stuff while your leaders are off spending lots of money on a beach in Spain, this kind of thing. And it's a different tactic, isn't it? Just to show, if that had happened 40 years ago, it wouldn't have happened 40 years ago, but if MI5 had the information on those guys, they would have probably taken them all in one night with a bit of SAS help, that kind of thing. There would have been people killed. All sorts. Now we're laughing at them and mocking them in the papers, which probably doesn't do their mood much good. But I think we've gone from IRA to provisional IRA to new IRA. We're going to get another split in the IRA. I'm hoping we'll go to diet IRA and then IRA 0. I think should be the but just these and again traditions and things like that. These creatures haven't gone away, and they still continue to do all sorts of stuff. How the language is used in this country is we don't talk about terrorism. It's paramilitary style. I really should do some kind of Gangnam style, but like Gangnam style. We don't have terrorist attacks in this country anymore. We have plenty of them. We've had loads of bomb alerts and all shootings and all sorts of stuff since the peace process, but we call those paramilitary style attacks. We don't call them terrorist attacks. Terrorists is almost an offensive word to terrorists these days. But yeah, peace is great. It's sad seeing the world. I think we had it really good in the early 90s. The world seemed to be sorting itself out, and then it's all gone a bit kooky, hasn't it? Now let's see. Where do we get to? But how seductive it is to live in peace, and that's what she did. She went and lived in peace, put a bubble around her, and ignored what was going on with her own family, her own daughter. Granted, they're light years away, etc. So maybe you couldn't really blame her, but it's to insulate her from all of this madness, and it's altered her own reality, and that she's. I like the fact Jessica's self-awareness of this. You know, you starting to feel quite bad for Jessica in this chapter in many ways. I think certainly you can feel bad for her as a mother, regardless of how you look at anything else. If you see what I mean. What is it? He who wants peace, let him prepare for war. And what else is it? Aristotle maybe said, only the dead, maybe it was Plato actually, only the dead have seen the end of war. This is a super optimistic statement, isn't it? Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, it is. It's a good thing to live in peace. It really is. It's war. I don't see the point of it. So I mean, it's not good. Put it that way. Jessica, the more she saw of Alia's court, the more sympathy Jessica felt for the words reported as coming from this blind preacher. Yes, Paul might have said such words on seeing what had become of his realm. And Jessica wondered what Gurney had found out amongst the smugglers. Her first reaction to Arrakis had been the right one, Jessica realized. On that first ride into the city with Javid, her attention had been caught by armoured screens around dwellings, the heavily guarded pathways and alleys, the patient watchers at every turn, the tall walls and indications of deep underground places revealed by thick foundations. Arrakis had become an ungenerous place, unreasonable and self-righteous in its harsh outlines. That's an interesting wee thing. I think we were having a wee chat there with you last week about one of my students' parents chatting about reading a French book. And a city, I think we were having a good natter about it, like cities as characters, you know. And there's this Arrakis as a city, its character changes. It's now, and we get this anthropomorphization, if you like, ungenerous place, ungenerous, unreasonable, self-righteous. This is the city. You know, I do like it. It's interesting. And again, it depends on what your viewpoint of what you might think Arrakis looks like. If you went by Denis Villeneuve's film boxes, basically, everything's a box, more boxes. Do I have one here? Let me just show you that kind of Arabian market. What do we got? No, that's a bunch of. Oh, I don't know. No, that'll do. I suppose the one, the cover that I'm thinking on is the one book that's not here. It's the one I'm reading, but just my sense of, you know, very much when I was reading Dune, I always get this sense of the Arabian world, but we get from the Arabian Nights, that kind of thing. That's what I would expect of Arrakis. You know, divans and spices and, you know, merchants and all of this kind of thing. And yeah, it sounds, and again, this is the people within the city adopting the habits of power. Normal buildings shouldn't have armored screens around them or heavily guarded pathways and alleys. It's like the Atreides moved in. Watchers at every turn, tall walls indicating deep underground places. They sound like a noble house, don't it? These are the trappings of power, and the unwashed masses, as we'll call them, are adopting them to show that, look, we too have power. We you know, our status in society is based on our things, and this kind of thing. I often think it's very funny how some people look at how well you're doing in life. This kind of thing. I get looked down upon by a lot of people because I don't earn much money. At the same time, I look down upon people because they earn too much money. But and I don't think they're worth it, if you see what I mean. But I'm not bothered by things like that. I don't go by wealth. You know, monetary value in life, it has no meaning to me at all. I'm a person who's out to live life and experience it and enjoy it. I'm going to spend as little of my time chasing pieces of metal. Well, certainly not coins and notes, you know. as possible. And I get to, like all people, we get to take absolutely none of it with us. It's not worth cultivating, is it? Well, that's my opinion. But but yeah, the trappings that we wear, the things that we put upon ourselves to show to other people what we are, if you like. My black glove, by the way, just to let you know, is not a kind of inverted Michael Jackson stylization. It's a thermal. It's a bit Darth Vader-y looking. Check out it. It's it's a thermal compression glove for my really bad hand. So just to let you know, it's not a style thing. you know. But yes, indeed. So the city has changed. Um, Ungenerous, unreasonable, self-righteous. Now, here we go. This is where Alia arrives. Abruptly, the anteroom's small side door opened. A vanguard of priestess Amazons spewed into the room with Alia shielded behind them, haughty and moving with a confined awareness of real and terrible power. And again, as much as we had Amazons as bodyguards, etc., this is a vanguard of priestess Amazons as well. So we take the fact that they were Amazons, that they would have been female Fremen fighters. Again, everyone's pretty much ditched their old religions to adopt the religion of Muad'Dib, if you like. I think ultimately her priestess Amazons are what become the fish speakers, if I'm not mistaken. I might well be. Been too long since I've read it. I'll have to check that. So here she comes, deliberately late. Alia's face was composed. No emotion betrayed itself as her gaze caught and held her mother's. But both knew the battle had been joined. Yes, that's it. Here we go. This is where it starts. All of it's been fencing, if you like, posturing, trying to figure out what's going on. Sides could be looking at it logically or illogically, but this is the line is drawn. This is where it goes. Battle has been joined. At Javid's command, the giant doors into the Great Hall were opened, moving with a silent and inevitable sense of hidden energies. Alia came to her mother's side as the guards enfolded them. "Shall we go in now, Mother?" Alia asked. "It's high time," Jessica said. And she thought, "She thinks she can destroy me and remain unscathed. She's mad." And Jessica wondered if that might not have been what Idaho had wanted. He'd sent a message, but she'd been unable to respond. Such an enigmatic message. "Danger. Must see you." It had been written in a variant of the old Jacobsa, with a particular word chosen to denote danger signified a plot. Nuance of language. Jessica's thoughts are, "I'll see him immediately when I return to Tabar," she thought. And that's the end of our chapter. And it's all ready to go. The next one's going to be a lengthier, much lengthier chapter where we're going to see all this kick off. I think very interesting. Just there's a number of things. Just how the Atreides sort of look at various people who are moving up within the Five Farouche system, like within the priesthoods, these organizations that have formed up around her son's religion, if you like. The confrontation between her and Javid, she certainly puts him in his place. She could have done so a lot harder. Even the use telling his voice, just telling him to be gone. But she doesn't use voice on him, It would be interesting. I started to think about that with the be gone kind of thing. It was making me think of, I think it's a Twilight Zone episode. Carlos is saying, "I always thought of it as trading chunks of my life for worthless pieces of paper." I'm enough to get by on, and that's good enough. So I work pretty hard, actually. Don't earn that much money, but I'm quite content. Carlos, I'm the guy that sort of, I go out, I remember a couple of years back, I went and bought a car, paid 400 quid for it, and it was a lovely car, and the reason why it cost £400 was because it was yellow, and covered in Scooby-Doo stickers. But that's the sort, I'd buy a car, drive it into the ground, I wouldn't waste my time on or money or energies on anything expensive, or you know, all cars fundamentally are the same. If it doesn't get you from A to B, it's no good. But a car that costs 400 quid will drive me to Belfast and back just as well as one that costs £400,000. I can think of a lot better things to do with £400,000, to be honest with you. And very much so, I wouldn't keep it, you know. But but I inherited a sort of chunk of money a wee while back, and I hung on to a very small part of it and gave the rest away. Mainly because I didn't want it, and I didn't. It makes life too easy in some ways, and that kind of thing. You know, it's just a personal thing. Lots of people have different attitudes to money and wealth, and how, you know, it's collecting and use in life. Quite frankly, I'd rather spend my time doing other things. You know, I'd got to a point, unfortunately, where I'd managed to make my money by having fun. So, but I've had to lose 2 of my jobs because of my hands, and which is a bit sad because I really enjoyed them. So I was a professional musician, go and play, you know, a gig once a week. Happy days, you know, that's a good little earner, and used to do that for a long time. And then I'd be an examiner as well, and I can't do that anymore because it's all computerized and wrecks your hands and stuff. But I'm not bothered. I've got other things to do. I'm a person that's quite mercurial. I can change. I can adapt. You know, and saying that though, it's I do tell people this. I'm Northern Ireland's most unemployable man. You know, been a long time. I had a good chat with Sitpod about this, but I'm getting my PhD in 2010 or 11. I haven't had a job interview or since. No matter what I apply for, don't get. So it's in some ways the PhD kills opportunities, you know, and even little jobs that you used to do to keep yourself going when you studied, you know. So it's an interesting thing, but then that's all right. I don't need other people to create work for me. I can do it myself. So I just work for myself, and I choose how often I work, and you know, I pick my holidays. I do what I like. It's great. No one tells me what to do, which is even better. And I take a wee bit of pride in my work. I try to do my best, absolute best for the kids that I teach, you know. But yeah, I'll go a wee bit above and beyond, and I'll even offer certain kids, you know, if they need an extra lesson or two before an exam, I'll give it to them for free if they can't afford it, that kind of stuff. But no, I won't pursue money, and I don't equate money with power, though a lot of people do. There's Connor just saying, how are you talking? Well, I'm just back from a gig in the Limelight. Connor, we were gutted actually just before Christmas. I think it was just before Christmas. We've been to see Electric Six a couple of years back in the Limelight. And we just decided that one day, whatever day we looked at to see what's on, it was the night they were playing and we couldn't make it. We were going to go see them again. Who were you there to see, Connor? If you don't mind me asking. But the last gig I had in the Limelight was Danger, Danger. Was it Electric Six? The Jesus Lizard. Electric Six. One of the best gigs I've ever. I'm a musician. I appreciate good music skill, and I appreciate good entertainment and good stage presence and all of those things. What a fantastic gig! And the Limelight is, for anybody who doesn't know where Connor's talking about, it's a pub club gig venue in Belfast, and it's a rather good one. It's not enormous. It's it's intimate, if you know what I mean, in the right way, but big enough that you can bop about a bit. But yeah, excellent. The Jesus Lizard. I hope you had a good time. Connor, I was just saying that to my wife a wee while back, but we going to start getting out more and go to a few more gigs and stuff. But we've our one for the year so far is we're going to see Rocky Horror in July, which I'm looking forward to. An amazing, excellent. The Jesus Lizard. Do. I'm so out of touch with everything. But I hate how one thing that I really don't like about the internet is what it's done to music and how I listen to music, if you like. Very good, very good. I must have a listen to them. Don't think I've heard much by them. The Jesus Lizard. Excellent. Good. Glad you had a good one. Texan punk band had a split single with Nirvana. I like my punk. I always preferred my American punk to my British punk, you know, by the way. Interestingly enough, Connor. But yeah, very good. We just wrapped up the chapter there, Connor. By the way, what time is it? Just gone midnight. So we've got a big one ahead of us next, folks, and and really where the things start to kick off. We're getting some lessons in power and stuff like that, and governance in this chapter. It's an interesting one. It's a very little preamble before what goes on in the Great Hall. Got to see Nirvana in the King's Hall in Belfast way back when. That was a good gig off the Nevermind album. Who else did I see way back then? For anyone who's not too sure, God knows, I saw the Black Crows and the Almighty. It was the very early 90s were good for gigs. Prior to that, in Northern Ireland, bands would not come here. If you wanted to go see a good band, you had to leave the country or go down south. But because we had a few things that had happened to musicians here in this country, it was but away. And then it's if you're a touring musician in Northern Ireland, it's a thing you'll never forget. I'll put it that way. Wasn't that? But it was a great thing that the gigs started coming back to Belfast in the late 80s, early 90s. I made good use of it. Managed to see quite a lot of good bands. Saw the Cult and saw the Black Crows for their first album as well. Bro Miami Show Band, yes indeed. That's the guys. My folks would have been, it's a generational thing. I know you're saying you're away in Connor, but my folks, whenever they met at the dances and that kind of entertainment used to be so huge in this country. Massive, and then with what happened to the Miami Show Band, the sort of terrorists using these guys and ended up just killing them. And a couple of them survived, I think, but it's just quite a bad thing. It just had who the hell would play in Northern Ireland? Simple as that. And it took a long, long time. Tom Jones worked the same circuit. Yeah, it was. They just disappeared. It happened overnight, pretty much. Connor, is just that suddenly, bands that you thought you would see. And when was that? You see, because you used to get bands. Yes, you're talking about I've performed on the same stage as the Rolling Stones and things like that at the Ulster Hall, but they did come for a while. I think was it Stairway to Heaven was first performed in Northern Ireland. I think. But I think was that the 60s. Miami Show. There's a film of it now, apparently. The Miami Show Band Massacre is what we're talking about. There they are. 60s. Yeah, killed in 1975. Let's see, with this band in 82. Miami Show played their final gig in 2015. If anybody's not heard about it, it's a thing. But that. So we did get stuff in the 60s and so on, and then, as I said, from then on, that was it. The 70s all the way up to pretty much 89 or 90. If you came here in a band to play, you were pretty brave. People would go see you, but it just didn't happen much, But yeah, love the Kinks. I love the Kinks. They're almost kind of an anachronistic band these days, aren't they? In some ways, they're very relevant. I think I love them. But just stuff like the Village, the Village Green Preservation Society, stuff like that. There's a harkening back to a kind of golden time, isn't there, with some of the Kinks music, that kind of English Sunshine and Village Greens and vaudeville acts and stuff like that. They're fantastic. I love the Kinks. Well, excellent. I'm glad. Yeah, excellent that you had. That's what I'm saying. We'll have to start checking out gigs and things like that. So we're going to take yourselves to see the Rocky Horror Show in Belfast in July, Connor, which I'm looking forward to. That's going to be fun, and amazing on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, Sunday afternoon. That's great. But one of my favorite songs is by the Kinks is Ape Man. I used to have this car, and when I was a student in Liverpool, it was a Mazda 323. I used to call it a Huru Mazda. And I bought it off a friend. He wanted to get rid of it, but it had a big surround sound music system in it, huge wattage, and used to pull up next to people at the traffic lights on a summer's day with Ape Man coming on, and it's anybody doesn't know, it starts with a huge car crash. Just to watch people jump out of their seats, and then it does that dun 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 dun. It's a great wee song, man. Love it. Can't beat the Kinks. Yeah. Gigs are woefully advertised here. They are. I remember going to see Goldfrapp up in Belfast, I think in Beck. I had no idea that they were on at all. Oddly enough, there was a shoe shop in Portrush that has a wee side street. And I'd parked and was walking down, and there was two posters. That's where the posters were, up some alley. And I thought, oh my God, they're playing. And I didn't see them anywhere else in the town. And, yeah, they're not advertised well at all, which is sad. But yeah, it's hard to get some. I don't know. My taste in music isn't very modern. There's not a lot that's modern that would interest me. I'll be looking for the older bands. Electric Six is probably about as modern as I get, I think. Well, no, I suppose Beck and Goldfrapp. Beck's gig was good, but we all had to evacuate the building, and it was his first time in Northern Ireland, and I think he shot himself just a little bit. It was a fire alert actually, but I think it was his first time there, and he was talking to the audience about what he'd heard. It was a really good gig. It was that one where all those guys set up the dinner table, and played their. It was very good. And the Goldfrapp gig I went to see was in the Ulster Hall. Where was Beck? Beck, I think, was in the Odyssey. Alison Goldfrapp's one of the best singers on the planet. That was a fantastic gig as well. Just good energy and enjoyable. I haven't heard much of his stuff in a long time, Connor, to be honest. Beck, it's I've kind of lost touch, but it's just how I absorb music, what's going on out there. It's not very good. To be honest with you, I tend to just listen to old stuff. I saw Therapy in the UH recently. One of the guys from Therapy went to my school, Connor. His early stuff is the best. Let me see. A couple of years above me. I met them in London actually once. They didn't recognise me. I didn't recognise them. They ended up having a bit of a matter. Here with maybe saying, is it Fife? I think is his name. Is that it? I don't even know who's still in Therapy. You see that from Lauren. Andy Cairns, drummer, Fife Young. I'm not sure. One or two of those was at my school, but there you go. If you want a wee bit of know-how about Therapy, was it Fife? But it was a few years. I don't know. They're not that older than me. Just 2 or 3 years before me. But I transferred into that school, if you see what I mean. But yes, indeed, Teeth Grinder's great. Oh, did he? He left in '94. Local bands like that. Again, I lost touch. The Almighty were a good rock band back then, but first couple of albums, and then oddly enough, I got to see Ricky Warwick supporting Bob Dylan in Belfast. There, best drummer ever. Oh, I don't know about that. Connor, I'd have to go Ginger. I think Ginger Baker's a better drummer than just about anyone. Saying that, Roger Taylor's. I've always thought he's pretty good. I think he's highly underrated. I'm trying to find my wee bit of bag here to make a cigarette, but I have no idea what I've done with it, which is probably for the best. But yeah, Innocent X is a great song. Anyway, it's I don't know. I'm just chatting away here before I have a wee smoke in my head, but I don't know. I'm a rock musician, Connor, as you probably know. Hard rock musician, if you like, not heavy metal or anything like that. But I don't know what the hell happened, but the 90s, 80s and 90s were fantastic for rock music. Somewhere around, I don't know, 96 or 7, it just all died a death. And just what happened to rock, And I can't think of any really great modern rock bands that stick out, or I've seen a couple here and there, the odd good song and stuff. Ginger Baker did a great album with a band called Masters of Reality. Yeah, there's a video of him online, I think, isn't it? Pretty much giving a drum lesson. I think to some guy from the BBC, what's amazing about it, Connor, is that I'm sure if you did a search for it, you'd find it is how articulate and aware that the interviewer is of drumming and music, and etc. He's obviously got the lingo to speak to Ginger, but it's what a good drum teacher Ginger Baker would have made. How he explains his craft to this guy is very articulate, and it's fascinating, And I'm a bass player. I would hop onto the drummer's drums. There's pretty much I'm rubbish on drums. There's only two things I can really do on drums, and one's Paradise City, and the other one is the drum beat to the War Eagles Dare that's used in it's also used in Monty Python's The Holy Grail. I cannot remember, Connor. I'd probably have a look. It's a long time since I've watched it. Let me just see if I can catch it, Ginger. It's an old one. It's black and white, I think. He's been interviewed a lot over the years, hasn't he? Let me just see if I can see it. No. Is that it? Possibly. I wouldn't be able to bring it. I think it's called Ginger Baker Drum Clinic, 1968. I'm looking at it. I can see it's not black and white, actually. It is in color, but not that great. That's the one I'm talking about. I think Ginger Baker Drum Clinic, 1968. It's the name of the video. It's on Mala Persona. I'm pretty sure that's it. I just found it fascinating to watch. There you go. Yeah, it's as I said. There's plenty of interviews, and he's a bit volatile, isn't he? But sometimes, but not in that video. He comes across as the most mild-mannered, intelligent, considerate. Wow, listen to this guy talk about drums. It's fantastic. I love it when you get interviews and with like that with musicians. There's a tendency sometimes within, I don't know, the world, the pop musicians really, or rock musicians, this kind of thing, that they're not proper musicians, and that's far from the case. They're often much more competent than their classical equivalents, if you like. They get a lot of interesting variations. I'm an very odd guitar player. I'm a very aggressive bass player. I'm quite an odd guitar player. When I play with other guitarists, I find that they watch me quite a lot. Because I have all sorts of little things, but I think things like drumming and guitar playing and bass playing, some very individual things, like all music, I suppose. But yeah, it's a great wee interview. I liked it. I love stuff like that. And it's just, you could maybe start to pick up my hands when I wouldn't go near a drum kit these days. Just a mess. I was just saying I haven't strung my classical guitar. I can't remember the last time, just because it's got a very thick fretboard, and it's just, I need to get that done and get back on it, But I miss playing in bands and playing with other people. I miss performing on stage. Actually, it's such good fun. It really is. I love the energy and just absolutely love it. My last gig, Connor's the Ulster Hall, but the last 3 years prior to that, myself and a singer called Lena Cohen, we would be a wee two-piece called Sings and Strings. So we would be the act that opened the Belfast International Beer and Ale Festival pretty much every year up until my hands went kaput. And I just to love it. Yeah, Connor said everyone should learn an instrument. Absolutely. Take your pick. There's so much. Now, and the interesting thing, I suppose, once you pick up one, if you know anything about it, if you can play one stringed instrument, it won't take you long to pick up the rest of them, if you like. I've started on, because of my hands, I've started on a wee ukulele here, which I'm quite enjoying, and I've done a couple of pieces of music for the station with a ukulele and with the classical guitar. Haven't got proper recording equipment, but we'll maybe see if we can put them together and add some stuff to them, and I'll hopefully get the words to my wee theme song for the station. But nice. Yes, indeed. Go bang a drum, pick up anything at all. My biggest envy, Connor, is singing. I cannot sing. And I would almost give anything to sing. But I enjoy singing anyway, even though I do it badly. But I'm that one guy that can't be taught to sing. As much as every music teacher will tell you there's no such thing. There is, and it's me. Unfortunately, I've been spent decades of my life trying to learn how to sing, and I can't hear right, and that's the problem. You make a bar, you can play a chord. Yes, you can't. Don't even need to make a bar. I don't know if you've seen Connor. There's I've got it here on the computer. Just let me quickly tell you what it's called. I've got a couple of documentaries here, but it's a music documentary. It's 3 guitar players. It's Jack White from the White Stripes. Where are we? The Edge and Jimmy Page, basically. I think I have it in my movie folder. Hang on, docs. It Might Get Loud. That's what it's called. And it's a very good wee documentary. It kind of, it's the 3 guitarists, if you like, 3 different generations of guitar players getting together to talk about how they do their business, And Jimmy Page is very interesting. It starts off with Jack White basically sticking a Coca-Cola bottle, running a string over it, putting in a wee connector and then running a slide over it and playing a piece of wood with a Coke bottle as a resonator and a guitar string. Who says you need a guitar? And that's the start of the documentary. It just shows you him building this guitar out of a plank of wood, and off they go. And it's a really good documentary. The only thing I felt a bit bad for it was that clearly the Jack White and Jimmy Page are of a caliber of guitar player, and the Edge is clearly not. If that makes sense, yeah, that's what you need to pick up on a string. If you make a power plan. Sorry, I seem to be dominating the chat. Not at all. Anybody wants to fire away quick? We've finished up with the wee book club tonight. So if anybody's got any wee questions or just a bit of chat, fire away. I'm going to wrap it up in a few minutes or two, but I'll finish my wee cigarette and my juice. And then I'm going to I'll make a start on the next chapter because it's a lengthy one and there's plenty to say about it. So I'll have to get out the work a wee bit early. But yeah, just to pick up. So it's a fascinating one. There was another documentary, I can't remember what it was called, that I liked, but it was more not to do with music, but it was Eric Bana and the Mustangs, driving the Mustang racing in Austria. That was quite a good one. Don't talk about documentaries too much here. And there you go. Yes, indeed. No, the interesting thing was that what Jack White does at the very start with that piece of wood and the Coke bottle, is almost the direct antithesis of the Edge as a guitar player, because whenever they're talking about their stuff, isn't there a bit where, well, this is my rack, and for want of a better word, what the Edge does was he would sit with a guitar and go ding 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 ding. I could do it with one hand, just sit and hit the string, and it's all these effects and reverbs and echoes and digital delays and all that. Because oh wow, that sounds amazing. It's a guy going dingity 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 ding. And I, as much as I thought the Edge is kind of probably an interesting chap, I thought they'd picked the wrong guy for that room, and that these 2 other guitar players are of a level so far beyond him. I'm not saying he's not a good guitar player, but there are, oddly enough, as we're talking about in governance and in Children of Dune today, there are levels, there are hierarchies. And unfortunately in music, it's your skill. Talk about class and stuff like that. Music's a great unifier, isn't it? It's I don't care where you are from the world, what language you speak, or anything, your religion, all of that. If you're a musician, I can get on with you and I can play with you and I can perform with you. And even though I don't speak the same verbal language as you, I speak the same mathematical and tonal language. It's there's something about music that's wonderful that way. That it's a great unifier, I think. People love music. Cultures that don't have music, naughty, But sometimes Northern Ireland's music, I suppose, association with music is kind of funny. We have all our trad stuff, the Irish stuff, but the Northern Irish are heavily into what we call both kinds of music, country and western. There's a very big country and western thing here. For some reason, But as I said, I'm a child of the '70s, so punk and rock and all of that stuff really at the heart of what I love. I love psychedelic music in particular. I love Motown. I love Mississippi Delta blues, that kind of thing. I love all sorts of music pretty much. I don't mind country and western too much, um, but I can't. Yeah, it's the right song there, but not a genre I would listen to if you like. Mm. And that's one of the things about YouTube, I suppose, is that there is some fantastic musicians on up there. I've got a friend who's a local musician who's just savant. He's a savant. He's so good, and he's got a rig. His name's Rab. He has a council bin carved out with a seat in it and his amp in it, and it's a fantastic rig. And he plays like a Yamaha keyboard guitar, and he has his classicals and his acoustics, and he just plays all sorts of stuff. He's really, really good, so talented. Um, but he's a street performer. Keep trying to tell him, pop on here and do a wee performance and stuff. People would love it. And if you again, his style of music's not my cup of tea, but if I was downtown, I would sit and listen to him. He's that good. Carlos is saying everyone can sing, few do it well. Laughing out loud. Well, that is true. But I do it particularly badly, Carlos. Connor's saying true. Carlos, our band for a long time, we had to audition for people. Two things that we had to audition for. We just couldn't find. I was the band's rhythm guitar player originally. But we could not find that. These are the two things that we had such a hard time finding. Number one was a bass player with any kind of rhythm whatsoever, and I'm not joking. You need rhythm to be a bass player, and if you haven't got it, go find another instrument. But not one of them. Not one of the bass. I don't know how many we went through. It was a ridiculous amount. Not one of them could work with the drummer and maintain the rhythm. And it just got to the point where Russ can do it. So I became the bass player and had to go. I didn't actually own a bass, so I had to go out and buy one, and then I had to get an amp for it because you put a bass through a guitar amp, you'll wreck it. And I became a bass player. But the other thing we could not find for love nor money was a singer. And I suppose when we were auditioning, it was back in the mid 2000s, I suppose, and onwards, from about 2005 onwards, I suppose. And at the time, you had all this X Factor, all this stuff. Every person that came to sing for us, and what we would do is we'd have a chat with them on the phone, tell them to pick a couple of songs that they felt comfortable with. We'd learn them. We did our best to make these people at ease because they're coming in. They don't know us, and we're a bunch of and we were quite a disparate little group, I suppose. And off you go, and the amount of breakdowns and people just crying in front of us and freaking out and wibble, just we were so shocked by almost everyone. Ultimately, the singer that we got in, even she was actually she's a good singer. She was just, I think it's probably nerves with a lot of people. But to actually get up on a stage, and as much as we were in a private room, there's nobody watching, they felt all that, and we were gobsmacked. And I don't know, there was a lot of X Factor and stuff like that on those times, and we're a proper band, and we want to have and generally as a rock band, we kind of wanted to go with a male singer, but we ended up with a female singer, no problem. But it was a very long process. And at one point, almost everybody pretty much had left the band. It was interesting to keep it going, but it's not for everybody. But the fear that it puts into people is quite interesting, and something I learned a long time ago, back when I started lecturing, way back in computing and information systems, was that the things that people were most afraid of were either public speaking and computers. I thought, for goodness sake, But it was an interesting thing to go through, and to deal with those people, and just to see how it affected. Though we tried to be as sympathetic and nice as possible about it, and a couple of them actually could sing, but they couldn't keep it together on stage. um, yeah, but a band is a very interesting thing. I've got lots of thoughts about it, but it's a very interesting unit of people that absolutely have to work together. There's a whole lot to the dynamic, and particularly with bands on stage and stuff, there's a linguistic element that you might not realize it, but if you've been in a band, you do get it. That every band has its own silent language, and it's a non-verbal language, and it's often more to do with facial expressions, nods, stamps of the feet, and all sorts of little things that you just get to know because you can't hear anything and your hands are busy. So that's what I used to find fascinating, was about the ways that our band communicates. You know, and the other thing really about being in a good band is that if you're in a good band, you can't tell this, is that every band makes mistakes. One of if we were basically a power trio with a female singer, so four of us, but three musicians. Strings can break, all sorts of things. Whenever something goes wrong for one person in a band, it's up to the rest of the band to hide it and cover it and make sure that person can jump back in. And part of being a good band is learning how to do that, how to either hide your mistakes from the audience or to utilize them and run with them and enjoy them, if you see what I mean. But I've got my drummer. I have all sorts of, and leg stamps and stuff in terms of when we start, when we stop, this kind of thing. And we've done quite a few songs that don't begin with drums. Generally, it's the bass or something, on guitar riff. But yeah, it's great fun. But it's a very interesting dynamic to look at, and to be a part of, I suppose. And there's a trust requirement, and at the same time, you have to have a similar sense to the music, and you have to all really want to have fun, because when our band everyone was at it. You can see they're really enjoying ourselves. We would knock it out the park, have 300-400 people go nuts in the pub that we're playing. You feed off it, and it's such a great vibe when it goes right. But it goes right all the time if you put the work in. It's as simple as that. But all sorts of wee things can go wrong. My bass, which is a good bass, has a hideously annoying feature. As it's an E bass, it's a 24 fret Yamaha RBX 374. It's a bit old now. It's got fantastic range. It requires a battery, 9-volt battery. When that battery runs out, there's a red light comes on the bass, and that red light comes on 45 seconds before the bass. And what it does is it slowly fades your bass to tell you you've got 45 seconds. Well, that's it. It's the only. It doesn't have a change your battery soon kind of thing. It has you need to change your battery within the next minute, and it used to catch me quite badly. I have to cut off, flip the bass, get that. I'm back on, and even changing strings. Yeah, it's active pickups. Yeah. Sorry, I better run with the conversation here. So Julian's just saying, so much music theory in Dune as well. Frank shows his love for jazz in later books. And Carlos is saying, I love Richie Blackmore playing his guitar as a cello. I want a ballast. I always wanted a sitar, Connor. When I lived in London, I was involved. Where I lived, I was heavily involved with the Indian community, and I got really into a lot of their culture. I got ended up playing karam, had my own karam board and stuff, and I had just ended up being poor, but I had planned to buy myself a sitar when I lived in London. Yeah, I used to I worked with an Indian chap. I had to listen to, was it Sunshine Radio all night? But I want to balance it. Yeah, that would be cool. Connor said, I've also played in bands, made no money though. It's extremely difficult to make money, Connor. And I'm not joking. In this country, it's almost impossible, and you don't really make money. You've got to pay for your strings, your petrol, all your wear and tear, all of that stuff. It's not a financially viable thing anymore, unless you can get a house gig or something like that. It wasn't a big thing for us. The little thing that we did with Islena, that was just making a wee bit of money, but it was for the fun. But as for Happy Shrapnel was a charity band, so we didn't. We knew we weren't going to make any money, so we just gave as much as we could away and used the charities kind of to. We'll do a thing for them just to promote the charities and kind of donate some stuff to them, because that's actually how we started. It was to support Marie Curie and Macmillan, the cancer charities. And that's why we're pretty well known all over Northern Ireland, because people would go here, we'd love to do a fundraiser, and can we put on a band and sell tickets? You go, yeah, what's it for? Would you do it for us? No problem. Do you need the equipment, blah, blah, blah. And they go, what's your fee? Donate it to the charity. That's how we work. Or if we were running the gig, all the money went to the charity, because we really did do it for the fun. Same as me doing this, it's for the fun. I don't make Connor. I don't make a penny off this. As much as it might generate a little bit of income, the amount of money it costs me to do it's gone far past anything that I might earn from this. But we don't have that many subscribers. We don't have that many. It's trickles from pennies from adverts. I don't do this for money. And if I did, you'd call me an idiot. You really would, because you can work out how many hours I put into this, how much money I earn per year from it, and then you can work out how much I'm paid per hour. And it's nothing. It's negligible. But it's not why we do. It's certainly not why I play music. And if my hands were not in the state that they are, I'd still be on stage. My problem is I can play for about half an hour. As a professional musician, you need to do 2 hours on a stage. You do an hour, take a break, and do another hour. And that's pretty standard. And my hands will seize up long before that happens, which is that's just it, But I had plenty of time doing it. I enjoyed it, and it's something in the past. But I'd still get up and play like for 10, 20 minutes or something if someone asked me to. But yeah, it's such good fun, And as a bass player, a big, powerful 100-watt, high watt amps and stuff like that. And when I'm playing bass, you know all about it. But I love the fact I get to direct the movement of people in a room and have them dancing. If I'm bopping up and down, so are they. That's what's great about the bass. It's not this dumb thing. It's this the funky stuff and rock, just getting people dancing and rocking. It's great fun. Quite enjoyed being on stage, says Carlos is saying being on stage is a rush, isn't it? Totally. And it's a feed, as I said, you feed. If your crowd's got energy, really good energy, you'll feed off it, and you'll get more energy, and so will they. And I'm an observer of human nature, particularly on stage. It's a different thing. You're a bit elevated. The lights, the way you think, the way you can see people, the way they can see you, and it's a different kind of thing than lecturing, which is also kind of up on the stage sometimes, But yeah, it's great fun. The first music to teach me how to really hear was ska, says Julian. Yes. Love ska music. I had a friend who passed away very recently. He's huge into ska music, and he was just go over to a lot of the ska bands and doing reunions and stuff and touring together. But like the New Romantics bands touring together as well. But yeah, I remember, what was it? I think my introduction to ska wasn't by a ska band, Julian. I think it was They Might Be Giants, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see, how's my memory working? Let's see. I'm Your Only Friend. Birdhouse in Your Soul. B-side is called Scatrian. There you go, the B-side. Skatrain. Scatrian. Might Be Giants. Of course, I'd heard ska long before that, but I'd never heard the term. Yeah, Congo says, but I dealt with it by not caring. You have to listen to each other, especially the drummer. Active pickups, no, just pick up. Active pickups. I'm thinking nearly for a minute in here. My brain's going to. Yes, it does. Design flaw. Yeah, well, yeah, it's a major design flaw. That's the way to go, preach. But the problem with it is that it's such a good bass, Connor. It's a cracking bass. I've got small hands. I can do that there, right? And I can run my hand all the way down to the 24th fret without my fingers separating. So in terms of, I bought it because it has a very narrow fretboard, and it has 3 octaves range, which gives you a lot more, um, a lot more. And in fact, they do have a 5 string version of it. I'm in two minds whether to ever replace it or not, but it needs a bit of tidying up at the minute. There's from sweating on it, a lot of your pickups pick up rust and stuff. Connor saying the guys in the Jesus are all mid-60s, but they played for 90 minutes plus. Oh yeah, I'd go rightly for. As I said, it's wear and tear, and some of us, but my left hand is absolutely screwed. But I would, for a long time, Connor, I was playing through the pain. I was actively like that on stage, but it got to the point where it's the bone. Did you hear that? It cracks in my hand, comes out of its socket. But particularly that their movement for playing it's all around my wrist. It's just a mess. But I have things like this. So I've got all sorts of things for trying to play guitar with that. But unfortunately, they tend to get in the way of your fingers. Star Wars. I saw THBG last November in the Mandela Hall. They actually were giants. Good action on it. Excellent. I'd love to see. I think they're a great band. I don't know too much of them. I love their a little bit of local history for anybody who doesn't know this one. They Might Be Giants covered Istanbul. If you know the song Istanbul was Constantinople. Istanbul was written by Jimmy Kennedy, who's from Portrush. Sorry, Port Stewart. He also Teddy Bear's Picnic. I think I had to show this to you some time ago before. Yeah, a little bit of my work. But we have a local festival in his honour, and it's called the Red Sails Festival. There you go. That's my work. I did all the work for them on their website and etc. etc. And it's a big festival here it's a kids and music festival. So we used to. I'm the only person that's performed at it 7 times in 7 days. Though I wasn't supposed to. I performed at it with 3 different bands, and then the last time I was there, the first act didn't turn up, and so I just jumped on to cover it. So I've done 7 gigs in 7 days at the Red Sails Festival. But yeah, I did all the design work and did the website, turned it around. It wasn't doing very well, and I have a gig anytime I want it, basically. But yeah, after doing all that work, and the festival wasn't doing very well. I was getting about 2,000 people a year on its website. I took them to about 30,000 a day. 30,000 a month. And we got the big turnaround of the festival. They never bothered to give me any credit in the papers. And then the next year, some IT company came in and just says, "We want all your designs and stuff," and I told them no. And so I got used a wee bit, but it doesn't matter that much, I suppose, But it was an interesting piece of work, Good action on it, yes indeed. So they played that very song. He wrote Teddy Bear's Picnic, yes indeed. That's Jimmy Kennedy is one of the great songwriters, but if you don't know anything, he wrote the Teddy Bear's Picnic. Now that's a hell of a song to write, isn't it? In terms of the most famous songs in the world, it's iconic, Sorry for spamming the chat. Don't be worrying about it. It's just at this point, just a wee bit of a chat. We've just hit 2,800 subscribers, Connor. We're going up a wee bit slowly, so it's always nice to sort of say hello to people. It's part of why we do this as well. I do this is a bit of a matter. It's also my social life because I am a misanthrope and I don't get out much, Nice, you deserve it. Yeah, it's slow and steady wins the race. I think we started at the same time as a bunch of other Dune channels. They've all kind of got to a certain point and done okay and are making their money and stuff. We've stayed quite low key. We've been ripped off a few times by a couple of people, but we don't mind. The person who's plagiarized this, for example, has brought out another sort of, and they're learning. Does that make sense? They're fixing their mistakes and their naughtiness. But no, we're doing all right. We're not pandering to algorithms, and we don't censor our language. I think, though we do try to maintain good inoffensive language, we try to cover as broad an audience as possible. But it's some of the topics that we have, I think, don't do us any good. Don't do with the algorithms and all of this stuff. I've been investigating a wee bit of that lately. It's been quite interesting. But no, I'm very happy with the way the station works. I'm desperate to get all this correspondence sorted out so we can have a whole bunch of new videos that I'd like to get sorted and get onto the machine to get them put together. Some for fun and hopefully some for June actually, and some just other science. I'm down to be a bit more creative on here. It's nice kind of running these Children of June, the June book clubs as kind of seminars, if you like, and then interacting with everyone. Because I and it's particularly we've got some polyglots on here. We've got people who speak lots of languages. There's lots that having an audience, brings to looking at a book, and it's just the real thing that bugged me, Connor, whenever I was doing this work originally, was there wasn't a single person I could talk to or that had any interest in this whatsoever around me. And if only I had this when I was doing the PhD, it would have been amazing. But it's good. It's a good place to run, ideas off people, to see what you think of the books. Have I interpreted it right? Am I getting it? There's so much, but having a wee audience and a small audience allows me to interact with you guys much easier than I've seen some of the big YouTube channels. There is no interaction. It's just a whole the words, the comments from people like yourselves go by so fast that you couldn't possibly react to them. And it's nice to be able for me to read what you guys are saying. I'm a wee bit deaf as well, so in terms of conversation and stuff, I can be a wee bit rude when I come across as rude when I'm talking to people. Sometimes because I don't hear properly. I kind of have a brain that won't shut up, and sometimes I'm too quick to get things out. So sometimes people can find me a bit rude. It's not intentional, but it's a much better. I come across a lot nicer. Let's put it that way. All too familiar story. No worries, Connor. As Julian says, sorry I'm so silent lately. You're quite busy these few months. Not at all. No worries, Julian says, Connor. No problem at all, Julian. We're saying we'll have to get that matter. I'm reading Julian's paper again. But looking forward to having a proper chat with you at some point, Julian. But no, it's lovely. I don't mind. Connor, often we run off into different topics. It's all good as far as I'm concerned. Sometimes we're doing sci-fi, sometimes fantasy, horror, what's going on in the world, this kind of thing. Other times we chat a bit about music, and I'd chat about anything. I'd jump into the ancient world and Romans and Greeks almost too easily, But it's I have no problem with the interactions, and it's nice to have them, Julian and Connor. It's a good thing, I think. And I said I look on this on the channel as this little science fiction station is a very positive thing. We've had a few attacks, a couple of attacks over the years, and we've kind of dealt with them, and we've figured out what was going on there. And apart from that, unlike things like Reddit and stuff like this, it's been a pretty positive experience. I love the fact that I got my PhD up on this, and for me, it's not how does it put? Somebody put a greatly enhanced version of it with the the video and the pictures and all that stuff. It's something that a PhD can't do. So no, it's nice. And the other thing, Connor and Julian spent some time in Belfast there and stuff. We're meeting people from all over the world. Which for me, I'm sure living in Northern Ireland, don't get out that much. We're pretty insular and we're surrounded by sea. So it's not that easy to meet people anymore. I used to live in big cities like London and stuff like that, where you'll get much more of a cultural melting pot. And we're starting to get that in Ireland, but not so much, But it's a good way of interacting with people for me. It keeps me a wee bit sane, keeps me still human, and it's good fun. And I'm sort of got 2,800 people signed on here for this for some reason. I think it's very gratifying. It's the biggest class I've ever taught. If you see what I mean. My biggest audience prior to that would have been about 1,000 people in the Ulster Hall. But yeah, and Dune is such a cool niche that it gains interest from some really interesting people. Agreed, Julian says, Connor. It touches on many interesting areas. It was one of the things we were discussing about is just how many different approaches you can come at this. I picked 3 of them and had, that was it. The ones that I didn't pick were the ones that had to get thrown out. There's PhDs and papers and even just fan stuff on YouTube. But people are really going at it as an interesting subject. As much as I may not like Denis Villeneuve's Dune movies, I think it's created a lot of interest in something that, as you say, was quite niche. I think a very cool niche. You either had read Dune or you hadn't, and I think certainly within science fiction fandom, there were little isolated places, things like Jackie Routu, you know. But it does indeed touch on many, and that's what science fiction is. I will tell you guys, is an umbrella genre. It can encapsulate and does so any genre of fiction whatsoever within it, and it can also do that with factual books, believe it or not, as well. And there's no other form of literature that does that. None. Um, and that to me is there's something ubiquitous about science fiction. But yeah, it's we are just talking about music. We could jump into science fiction music right now, no problem. I'm sure I could find science fiction featuring teddy bears, and possibly even the Teddy Bears Picnic. I've very little doubt about that. I can go find it. You know, yeah. Um, I was even considering at one point kind of trying to do a wee bit some writing myself, some ideas. I was thinking about sort of redoing the monkey myth with him with Sun Wukong as an enhanced monkey, basically. He was a musician that played with three war robots that were the band. I had a whole bunch of short stories about this character, the pub that he plays and stuff, and it all came from an idea that we were driving along the coast once, and we went past it's a bed and breakfast on the northeast Anteroom coast, and I don't know what its name's supposed to be. I think it's Furid View or something, but if you look at the letters, I always read it as the Lurid View. And so the Lurid View became this kind of pub club on a space station, which I would make as a sort of hub for stories, and I wrote a whole bunch of stories around these characters a long, long time ago. But yeah, you really can't just jump anywhere with science fiction. But no, I've no bother. We're here for a bit of a chat and a bit of an hour. The work got done tonight, and there's no harm in relaxing a bit and having a bit of crack afterwards, But there we go. But I tell you what, guys, I am going to say goodnight because my old bladder has been bursting like a bugger this night. Maybe that's where Hammerstein is. Hammerstein dead? Don't tell me that, Connor. Dear oh dear. Or are you thinking unhappy shrapnel? But don't tell me Hammerstein's dead. Hammerstein cannot be dead, or should not be dead. I'm hoping. But see, in fact, you know something? Oh, Happy Shrad's okay. Yes, indeed. Well, he died on Mars, didn't he, in a bar brawl? But Hammerstein lives. Thank you. Ever since I was a little kid, in fact, it's amazing that I don't have a Hammerstein tattoo. Hammerstein and Rogers. Ever since I was a little kid, I mean, 4 years old, I fell in love with them. They used to do a little kind of a feature on 2008. It was called Hammerstein and Rogers is Laughing. And they were much more. Hammerstein's got two heads. Anybody's wondering, he is the all-out killing machine, leader of the ABC Warriors, old Red Eyes himself, the first robot to kill a human. In fact, we're thinking about doing a thing on AI right soon, Connor. Actually, and Hammerstein is one of the individuals I was thinking about. I was thinking about including Hammerstein. Am from I Have No Mouth, I Must Scream. Who else? AI's the grey area, also known as the meat fucker from the culture. There was one other. And I was going to package these as in a MetQuake's big jobs. I have MetQuake tattooed on my arm, believe it or not. Let's see. There you go. I don't know if you can see that. Hang on, that's probably going to be weird. What you've got here is that is Mongrel chasing MetQuake. It's when MetQuake has a different body from the Simon Bisley ABC Warriors. It's quite a comical one. That's who's on my arm. Yeah, that's Mongrel. That's it. Big smile. That's him chasing. That's MetQuake. If you check out tell you what, have I got it here? No, I don't. The Time Tombs one. It's the black and white Simon Bisley ABC Warriors. That's where that's from. I've got a colour version of his woman. Ireland is a woman on my leg as well. But I don't know what else we got. Strontium Dog. Not too good. I got my biochip Romanov crest, and that's a first and last a North American Indian eclipse symbol, I think. Goodness, they've all faded a bit. I've gotten old. Well, there you go. But yes, sorry, you give me palpitations there for a minute. Hammerstein should be alive in the far, far future. So if you told me that he was dead, I would be having problems. But the greatest of all the ABC warriors, Colin, you have to know, is Rojas. He's the absolute. He is the Lord of Chaos himself, the sewer robot, you know. But obviously, Hammerstein and Rojas, Hammerstein and Rogers and Hammerstein is the play there. But they used to do a kind of little kids laughing in 2000 AD, all the way back. They kind of replaced that after they kind of did the robot revolt stories and stuff. It's a very different set of robot stories than you might find in Isaac Asimov, you know. But absolutely old Red Eyes. I could write a whole program. I could do a 1 hour program on that robot alone. You know, he's a fascinating character. I love Hammerstein. In fact, by the way, Connor, alternative names for the band included Hammerstein. You know, he's a fantastic character. I love him to bits, and they played with him quite a bit actually over the years. He's a character that's quite fun. You know, big jobs, no way, cool. Yes, indeed, very nice. Yes, rest assured. Yeah, I'm glad to hear. Yeah, I stopped reading 2080. I was actually thinking about doing this at some point. I've got the 2 stories that killed. Oddly enough, my son went and bought me a couple of collections of Judge Dredd stories, and it contains the 2 stories that I just went, I've had enough of this. It's probably the equivalent of woke hitting 2080. And as much as there are always generational changes within 2080, I wrote them all out. If you see what I mean, you get used to certain writers, certain artists. America would buy them up and off they go, and you would get the new talent. It would take a wee while to adjust to the new look and the new feel. But that they had a stable of characters that they should respect the core values of, and what they did with Judge Dredd in these 2 stories, I just went, I've had enough. You know, I was in my possession 400 issues. I gave all mine away to a student, you know, who had taken an interest in it. So he got about 20 boxes. His dad had to come with the car, all the way back to the start, you know. Julian Thompson's. Oh, yeah, I've been reading 2080 since I was 4. Because my brother bought them, you see, and then 2080 and Tornado and all that stuff. Just read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream last week. Wild stuff, super postmodern. It's an amazing, harrowing story. It really is. It's the nature of the horror in it, isn't it? The final moment in the story, I think, in particular. The fact that, you know, you have an AI that has such hatred of mankind, and that it can express it, I suppose. That's it. Yeah, I cogito ergo est. I think, therefore I am is why he's called Am. Yeah, but I've just seen the something we've been talking about, just the influx of AI invading our lives without really anybody wanting it in. It's already there on Google searches and stuff like that. And the nature of the AI intelligence and how it's learning, I suppose. But where it's going, people will be talking about artificial general intelligence. I kind of always use my own terminologies where AI is sentient is your problem. That no laws have been programmed into these things. No, you know, and that it's up to us to do that. And if we don't bother to do it, then we are literally creating our replacement. You know, there's a great recording of Alison reading the last bit. Yeah, it's. I'd love to. That's the one I picked up recently in my book with my book tokens. I'll just wrap up with this, folks. That's what I picked up the other week. So I picked up 4 new books. For anybody who's not too sure, I'll just quickly show them to you. Just book tokens. What was the 4th one? Can't remember now. Bear with me. And oddly enough, it was based on a lot of recommendations, but I didn't get. I couldn't get one single one of them. But I replaced. Well, I was saying I didn't replace this. I've never actually owned it. I read it. And it was a library book when I was young. Rendezvous around the next Denis Villeneuve butchering. The Way of Ghosts and Other Dark Tales by Ambrose Bierce. So we're looking to get the Carcosa stories together, the King in Yellow, but get all that. Kind of get a completionist read. Picked up Werner Vinges. I did say I'd never seen a book by his anywhere. I proved myself wrong. Well, it looks like a fairly new set of books, so maybe following his passing away. This one, Harlan Ellison's Greatest Hits, edited by J. Michael Straczynski. It's got a great selection. And the first two stories, I was talking about this, Repentant Harlequin, said the TikTok man. Pardon me, I just a key word and triggered the fact, I've read that before years ago, but just couldn't remember. Which is a nice thing, actually, when you read a story and you realise you've forgotten it. But something in it, oh God, I've read that, you know. There we go. Well, listen, folks, great bit of recording of Alison reading the last bit, the new one. I hear good things, Carcosa. Yes, indeed. Well, listen, folks, my throat's going. I'm out of precious fluids, which always need to be replaced. So I will start to say goodnight before I cough and wheeze much more. So listen, thank you very much, guys, for the crack. I love the chat at the end of the night. It's always welcome, folks. Pardon me. So there we go, folks. It's 1 o'clock. I will say goodnight. And we'll be back on Tuesday with chapter 23 of Children of Dune at 10 p.m. GMT. And in the meantime, I will say, look after yourselves, be careful, be safe, and take care. And we'll see you all real soon. And thank you all very much, as always, for your support. See you later, folks. Take it easy. Good night. Bye-bye. Egad and on indeed. See you later, folks. Good night.